This podcast of the Equine Forum is brought to you by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business. It all begins in 15 seconds right after this word from our podcast sponsor.
The University of Louisville Equine Industry Program at the College of Business is now offering a graduate certificate, which can be completed in 15 or 30 weeks and be done as a standalone or used as 20% of your MBA. Classes at both the undergraduate and graduate level are forming now for August.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Forever Unbridled on the outside. Caramba down at the rail. It's Forever Unbridled by a nostril. Caramba coming back again on the inside. It's going to be tight as they come down for the finish in the Cumley. And it is Forever Unbridled. Looked like she got it by a couple of noses.
Suddenly the whole picture changes. Here's Ring Weekend on the outside. Ring Weekend, Vijack. Ring Weekend and Vijack gonna hit it together. Close, looked like Ring Weekend and Dryden Van Dyke won it.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
2 lengths to bind, and this leader is binding more. Rachel Alexandra and Calvin Burrell, and they have now slipped the field and gone clear, and it is Rachel Alexandra. How impressive! Rachel Alexandra wins, and it's a second golden rod for winning jockey Calvin Burrell. Then the Sky Has No Limit, who's looking for a seam, and he's running out of time because Super Saver has kicked again, and Super Saver has gone clear now by 5 lengths as they race inside the final 16. Super Saver is out in front for Calvin Burrell, giving chase. Williams Kitten for the Kentucky Jockey Club goes to Super Saver, a third win in the race for Calvin Burrell.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Good morning once again, everyone. It is post time for the Equine Forum, the show that launched a network. And it's all right here, of course, presented by TwinSpires on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, with you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern on Sirius 162, XM 207, our affiliates in Lexington, Louisville, and across the country, and streaming worldwide and podcast on our website, horseracingradio.net, or wherever you access your podcasts. Well, Churchill Downs is hosting the second Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool this weekend, and you can head over to TwinSpires to place your bet anytime up until 6 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. Rapoli Stables Fierceness was made the 15-1 individual betting favorite following his impressive win in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile at Santa Anita 3 weeks ago. No surprise there. The juvenile winner typically gets the lion's share of the money among those individual choices, especially at this time in the wagering. But what might be a little bit of a surprise is the amount of action that Fierceness was taking early on when the wagering opened at noon Eastern on Thursday. He was down to 7-1. And that was after that opening line of 15-1. He's currently sitting at 11-1. So out of curiosity, I went back and did some research and looked at the closing odds for the second future wager pool for a few different years. And in 2015, the American Pharoah year, this was interesting. At that time, Pool 2 was held in early February, but the result was similar, with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner Texas Red closing as the 9-1 favorite among the individual betting choices. Eventual Triple Crown winner American Pharoah closed at 10-1, along with his stablemate Dortmund, who was also at 10-1. Remember him? In Pool 2 that year, Dortmund was on an even playing field with American Pharoah. And this is what always intrigues me about the future wagers and the way that certain horses are perceived throughout the road to the Kentucky Derby. And we didn't know, of course, in February that American Pharoah was going to turn out to be the Triple Crown winner, American Pharoah. But he proved to be better than Texas Red, who was pretty good, but he wasn't American Pharoah. Dortmund wasn't American Pharoah. So 3 years later, when Justify rolled to victory beneath the TwinSpires on his way to sweeping the Triple Crown, he wasn't even included in Pool 2 because he had yet to make his first career start. We knew Justify was out there. There was some buzz about his potential debut, but we didn't know he would turn out to be Triple Crown winner Justify. That pool, by the way, was held February 9th to the 11th. Justify didn't debut until February 18th, so not included in Pool 2. Forte opened as the 10-1 individual choice in Pool 2 last year, and if you wanted to bet eventual Derby winner Mage in that pool, you would have had to take an opening line of 3-5 because he wasn't even offered as an individual betting choice in Pool 2. He would have been in the all other 3-year-old category. Obviously not a good bet considering that he went off at 15-1 in the Run for the Roses and paid $32.42 for a $2 win wager. So 3-5 would not have been the way to go on Mage. And there is a tremendous amount of uncertainty and risk when making any future bet in any sport. And that's based on the situations I obviously just pointed out. Certainly horse racing is no exception, and it holds true for the Kentucky Derby. So much is going to change over the next 161 days before we get to the first Saturday in May. So if you're going to take a shot on a horse in the Derby futures, you better be sure the reward is worth the risk that you're taking. So back to Fierceness. Do you want him at 11-1? Currently sitting at 11-1 going into today. And if not, would you take him if he drifted back up to his opening line of 15-1, sitting here on November 25th? It wasn't like he was 1-9 and dusted the field in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, the second coming of American Pharoah. He was overlooked at 16-1 that day, and he freaked. Ran a tremendous race. Was that his ceiling, or is there more development to come over the next 5+ months for Fierceness? That's a question you have to ask yourself when you're looking at making a future bet like this and taking a specific price. What about the two highly regarded rivals who finished behind him in the Juvenile, Muth and Locked? They didn't run poorly in the Juvenile, but again, Fierceness freaked. They weren't going to beat Fierceness in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, no matter how good they ran. Muth, of course, is not an option among individual horses because of the Bob Baffert ban, but you can take him at even money right now among all other 3-year-olds if you want to go that route. Locked open at 30-1 in this current pool. He's currently sitting at 19-1. Champagne winner Timberlake, who was 4th in the Juvenile, is currently second choice behind Fierceness at 17-1. Are those horses a better play over Fierceness at 11-1? You get a little bit more value with a horse like Locked and a horse like Timberlake. But what if Fierceness continues to blow the doors off the competition? And he's 5-2 on Derby Day because he's been that dominant on the road to the Kentucky Derby. Well, 11-1 today is looking pretty good. And if you're taking him at that price, that's exactly what you're saying. You're saying he's going to be that dominant. He's going to continue to do what he did in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile in his preps leading into the Kentucky Derby. Because you're banking on the fact that he's going to be significantly lower than 11-1 on the first Saturday in May. And then there's owner Mike Rapoli. And I find this very interesting. Mike Rapoli invests so much into our game, and he's ramped that up over the past year. But are you beginning to maybe get the sense and the feeling that Mike might be a little bit snake bit when it comes to the Kentucky Derby? Had to scratch Uncle Mo in 2011. Uncle Mo is going to be, if not the favorite, among the favorites that year. I believe he was second choice when he was scratched. Had to scratch Forte, morning of the Derby, this year. Here's Mike's horses that he's been part of, either in partnerships or by himself in the Kentucky Derby. 2011, Stay Thirsty, 12th. 2013, Overanalyze, 11th. 2016, Outwork, 14th. Mo Donegal, 5th last year. Dynamic 1, 17th in 2021. Vino Rosso, 9th in 2018. Noble Indy, 17th in 2018. But Uncle Mo and Forte was going to be the favorite. Uncle Mo and Forte, maybe his two best chances, and he had to scratch him. So are you starting to get the sense that maybe he's a little snake bit, if you believe in that kind of thing? It hasn't clicked yet for Mike Rapoli. Maybe this is the year with a horse like Fierceness, or maybe it's a horse that Mike Rapoli has that is just making his debut or hasn't even debuted yet that we're going to hear more from down the road. By the way, you also could have gotten Fierceness at 29-1 in the first Kentucky Derby futures pool. So are you willing to buy him at his current 11-1 odds here in Pool 2? You can go to TwinSpires to bet all of those, all the future odds any way you like. You can bet exactas. You can bet the sire, future Derby sires, if you want to do it that way too. Whatever floats your boat, but just make sure you're getting good value for that risk that you're taking on a horse in the future odds. Today's poll question is going to focus on the upcoming winter race meets. You got Fairgrounds that recently kicked off their winter meet. Turfway opens on Wednesday. You're going to hear from Tony Calo, the new announcer at Turfway. Looking forward to hearing from him later in the show. And Gulfstream is going to follow suit on Friday with the start of their championship meet. Oaklawn and Santa Anita also are on the horizon. So the poll question this morning, which winter meet are you most excited about? Fairgrounds, Gulfstream, Santa Anita, or other? And if you choose the other category, and it's a different track other than those three, comment and let us know which one. Which winter meet are you most excited about? Is it Fairgrounds? Is it Gulfstream? Is it Santa Anita or other? Maybe it is Turfway. Maybe it's Oaklawn. Maybe you're looking forward to the Aqueduct winter meet. Whatever it is. Let me know your thoughts at HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook. If you don't do social media, email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net, and let me know which meet you're most looking forward to. All right, here's the full lineup for you here this morning. When I come back after this first commercial break, a very special, as they all are, but another very special edition of Unsung Heroes. I welcome David Pope from Sienna Farm and has a fantastic story. He's going to be honored with the White Horse Award this year. It's a very special honor. I think you're going to love this piece coming up in just a few minutes. Vicki Oliver is going to join me at 8:35. She just saddled the winner of the Clark Stakes at Churchill Downs yesterday. I'll get a chance to talk to her about that big win by Trademark. Kevin Kerstein, the Director of Communications with the Kentucky Racing Circuit, is going to be with me at 9 o'clock Eastern to talk about today's and this weekend's closing program at Churchill Downs. Brian Nadeau with me at 9:20. The longtime handicapper and analyst at Gulfstream Park will look ahead to the championship meet, which again begins on Friday. 9:40, Tony Calo, longtime announcer at Finger Lakes in New York, now the new voice of Turfway Park. He'll be with me at 9:40. 10 o'clock Eastern, James Scully will join me for the TwinSpires Triple Play. Kurt Becker, Stroll Through Racing History, coming your way at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer, with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin debating some of the hottest topics. And I will ask them which winter meet they are most looking forward to. Should be an interesting conversation with them on so many different topics. Unsung Heroes is next. Stay with me. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
I'm here with Joe Brown-Nicholson of Nicholson Insurance Agency. Joe, how do you value a horse for insurance?
Well, Mike, it's easy to value a horse when purchased out of a public auction. The insured value would simply be the auction price. But insuring homebreds can be a little more involved.
How so?
Well, factors such as a stud fee, conformation, pedigree, sales and race records of siblings, even popularity of the stallion, all come into play.
How closely do you work with owners in determining a horse's value?
Well, the owner has a pretty good idea of the horse's value, so generally it's just a matter of agreeing to the request and having the policy issued.
For all your equine and general insurance needs, including farm owners, liability, homeowners, auto, and more, contact Joe Brown Nicholson at nicholsoninsurance.com or call 859-224-7080. That's 859-224-7080. Nicholson Insurance Agency.
There are plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park with live thoroughbred action Friday through Sunday and simulcasting 7 days a week. Join us on track for weekend stakes races and make plans for opening day of the championship meet on Friday, December 1st. Dine trackside in 10 Palms with an elevated view of the track and grab a cool cocktail in the Carousel Club. For reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
When it's time to paint the fences and barns, think Farm Paint. At Farm Paint, you get the industry's best coatings and paints factory direct at low, low prices. Farm Paint is your source for quality paints, roof coatings, dustless arena footings, and more. You can purchase online or drop into a Farm Paint store near you with locations in heart of bluegrass country at 700 Phillips Lane in Lexington, Kentucky, Columbus, Ohio, and Sandusky, Ohio. Buy factory direct and save at farmpaint.com. That's farmpaint.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Heroes in the world of sports are not uncommon, oftentimes thrusting themselves into the limelight through unimaginable feats.
Back behind the ball, Woods, Hudson.
And in! He has done it! Tiger is back! Tiger is back on top! Tiger Woods, the 2019 Masters champion.
And breathtaking performances.
Here's how you count to 8, 3, 2, 1. And for the 8th time, college basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
But behind every great hero, there are others. Individuals who play a crucial role in the achievements of those we read about in the headlines. The ultimate team players, content to stand behind the curtain, embracing their place as a vital part of a sport's success. In horse racing, these are the unsung heroes.
Well, the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America has an award called the White Horse Award that they have been giving out since 2003. And the 21st Annual White Horse Awards are going to take place this year. And in the beginning of the press release they sent out this week, it says a hero is a person admired for courage, outstanding achievements, or noble qualities. There are heroes throughout the horse racing industry, and the Racetrack Chaplaincy of America recognizes some of these selfless servants annually through the White Horse Awards. Sums it up beautifully. And this year's recipient is David Pope of Sienna Farm for an incredibly selfless act. David donated a kidney to a total stranger, saved his life, and he is with me now as this week's Unsung Hero. David, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mike.
Happy to have you on board and really excited to hear this story. This is such a wonderful, positive story, and at a time when people are, counting their blessings and thanking the Lord for everything that they've been given in their lives. My goodness, what a gift you were able to give, my friend.
Well, thank you very much.
Tell me the story. Take me back to the beginning.
So, in January of 2022, one night I said a little prayer. I was trying to find a way to, build my faith a little bit, the connection I have with God. And I asked God what I could do for him. And I wanted to do something meaningful. So I said, hey, take me outside my comfort zone. Let me do something outside my comfort zone for you. And the next day when I'm going through Facebook and I seen Matt Cook's post about his friend needing a kidney donation, it kind of blew me away. I was like, oh crap, is this really what I'm praying for? And honestly, I looked at that post probably 5 times before I said, well, let's go ahead and put my name in. What's the chances that I'm really going to be a match? But let's go ahead. There's something I need to find out by doing this. So I submitted my name, and I heard back from Tampa General, and they told me, hey, everything looks good in your application, but you weigh a little too much. You need to get your weight down so you're within the acceptable limits to donate. But, once you do that, go ahead and give us a call back if you're still interested in doing it. And, like anybody, when you start saying, oh, let me go to the gym and work out and lose some weight, it takes some time. But I finally accomplished that, and I reached back out to Tampa, and I'm like, hey, let's take this to the next step. What do you need from me? And so, at that point, I was just submitting my most current blood test to make sure everything looked good, and it did. And so they set me up an appointment with LabCorp where I had to go in and do 8 vials of blood so they can conduct all the testing to make sure everything is good to do a donation. And the first time I did that, they didn't quite have enough blood because I'd recently had a cold, so I had to do it again. And finally, in April, they called me up. It was actually Easter week. It was Thursday of Easter week. And they said, Dave, you are a match. You can donate your kidney if you want to do that. It's up to you, but you can do it. There's still some more testing you need to do, but if you want to go forward, it's probably time you contact Chris. And, at that point, I seen the post in January. I had not said anything to Matt about it. I never, had reached out to Chris or anything. I stayed in the background because what was the chances it was going to be a match? And I didn't want to be that guy say, hey, look what I'm going to do if I couldn't do something. Mm-hmm. So I contacted Matt and explained to him what was going on. And I think he was quite blown away by it, too. And he gave me Chris's number. So, that weekend, Easter weekend, I called Chris and introduced myself. And, explained, hey, I still have some more testing to do, but it looks like I'm a match. And if you're good with it, I'd like to give you a kidney. So that started a wonderful journey for me.
Yeah, it's an incredible story. And Matt, by the way, for folks that don't know who we're referring to, Matt is the manager at Shawan Place Farm. He learned that a friend of his, and a fellow Marine, by the way, that he had served with, Chris Kilpatrick, was in desperate need of a kidney transplant. And then when Matt made the post on Facebook, that's what led David to see it, and then that got this entire ball rolling. When you had the conversation with Chris Kilpatrick, when you made the call to him, what was the conversation like? I'm sure it was emotional.
It was kind of like, I don't think he quite understood what I was saying. He didn't know I was in a process. And if you can imagine somebody out of the blue calling you up that you don't know and saying, hey, I heard you had a kidney. You had needed a kidney, and I've got one I want to give you. I think he was kind of in shock.
Yeah.
So it was a nice conversation, but it was a sort of a short conversation. And, at that point, I still needed to do more thorough medical testing. And, that's the one thing I learned about the organ transplants. There's a team of people that are on my side that make sure everything I do is going to be safe for me. So if you're ever in this process, know that people are looking out for your best interest. And they'll make sure that when you do something like this, that you're not putting yourself in harm's way.
The operation was a success. You're doing well, David, and Chris is doing very well from what I understand.
Yes.
How much interaction have you had with him since the procedure?
Well, we probably check in with each other every month and maybe every other month just to see how we're doing. One thing I asked Chris for when I did this surgery, I asked him, I said, my one request is that when we get post-surgery, when we're both recovered and we have a successful result, let's get together and go to a Tampa Bay Rays game and just celebrate this surgery. So we did go this year, I believe it was June 24th, to watch the Devil Rays play.
Wow. Why the Tampa Bay Rays?
He is a big fan of the Rays, and that's one thing in his post that he was talking about. He was a lifelong fan of Tampa. I love baseball. I love visiting different stadiums around the country, and I've never been to Tampa, so I was game.
Talking with David Pope, a true unsung hero from Sienna Farm, and selflessly donating that kidney to a complete stranger. He is the recipient of this year's Racetrack Chaplaincy of America White Horse Award. When you got the call that you were going to receive that award, David, what was that like?
Very special. Bob Clark was the person who nominated me for it, and Bob's become a good friend since all this has happened. We've had lunch together. He's a wonderful guy. It meant a lot to me that he did that. He knows me from some other experiences. So it was I'm really proud that he did that for me.
This has been a difficult year for Sienna Farm with the owner, Anthony Manganero, passing away. Just take me through what these past several months have been like for you. It has to be a roller coaster.
It has. Well, actually, I retired from Sienna in April.
Yep.
And I went to work as a part-time senior consultant with Dean Dorden.
Yep.
I'm part of their AFO Equine accounting team. And I've relocated to Canton, Ohio. So this year I'm able to spend a lot of time with my mom and dad. They're both up there in years, and they definitely can benefit, and I can benefit by being closer to them. So, yeah, going through the process of moving, changing jobs, and then with Anthony's passing, it was a roller coaster of a summer. And then another former boss of mine, Burgeon Jones, I worked at Airdrie Stud for 12 years. And with his passing, it was another, one of those gut punches. But, life goes on. And they did amazing things and made good examples for me to follow. And I would like to think both those gentlemen had a positive impact on things I do in life, the choices I make.
Well, and you made a wonderful choice here, and you have had an incredibly positive impact on the life of Chris Kilpatrick. And David, you're a true unsung hero. There's no doubt about it. And I really, really appreciate you taking some time here this morning to tell this story. Enjoy that White Horse Award ceremony. It is well-deserved. By the way, my good friend Dan Fick is going to receive the RTCA Community Service Award.
Wow.
Dan's been a wonderful ambassador for the industry and for the chaplaincy for many, many years. Just don't play racquetball with him. You can't beat him. The guy's too good. But other than that, he's a wonderful person.
Well, I hope that if any of your listeners ever are in a situation where they're contemplating organ donation, that they would contact me, because, when I'm going through the process and I talk to donors that had done this, it made me much more comfortable with my decisions, and I'm more than happy to get into the details with anybody who's ever wanted to do something similar to this.
David, really appreciate it, my friend. All the best
Thank you,
to you moving forward, and congratulations on being named this week's Unsung Hero.
Thank you very much.
All right, David Pope here on HRN. What a story, huh? That is what it's all about. That's the good stuff right there, and a true unsung hero in the sport of thoroughbred racing. This segment brought to you every week by our friends at Woodbine. I'm back in 30 seconds after this word from Woodbine.
The thrill of world-class racing now at Toronto's Woodbine Racetrack. Kick off the weekend's action now with racing each Friday, Saturday, and Sunday beginning at 1:05 p.m. Eastern. With more than $64 million in purses this season, you'll enjoy world-class racing and training facilities with the top turf racing in North America over the prestigious E.P. Taylor Turf Course. You won't want to miss racing at Woodbine. For wagering updates, handicapping tips, racing news, and more, visit woodbine.com.
Well, Trademark and First Mission put on quite a show through the stretch beneath the TwinSpires yesterday in the Grade 2 Clark. When I come back, you're going to hear from trainer Vicki Oliver, the trainer of Trademark, as she looks back on that fantastic win from yesterday afternoon. That is all ahead after this week's Legends of the Turf.
On October 27, 1974, at Woodbine in suburban Toronto, Canada, the 37th running of the Canadian International Championship Stakes over the testing distance of 13 furlongs was the feature race on the card. There were better than 25,000 fans on hand in typically resplendent autumn weather, with the foliage appearing as though Mother Nature had reached down with tender tendrils to paint the countryside in the splendiferous golden hues of the season. There was a young lady in the field who had already chalked up stake scores in 4 different countries and was bidding to become the very first ever to have won stakes in 5 different countries. She was an elegant, lovely, statuesque young lady who simply exuded class, looked every bit the part, and she was a Kentucky bred. She was by Vaguely Noble out of Charming Alibi by Honey's Alibi, and was racing in the silks of Nelson Bunker Hunt. She had won the Prix Yacoulef in France at 2. At 3, she had scored in the Irish Guinness Oaks, the King George VI and Queen Elizabeth Stakes in England, and the Prix Saint-Hilary, the Prix de la Grotte, and the Prix Nier in France. And further, she had humiliated an outstanding field of international runners in the Washington, D.C. International, an invitational at Laurel Park in Maryland. At 4, her age at the time of the event being recapitulated, she had won stakes in 3 countries: the Grand Prix de la Saint-Cloud in France, the King George and Queen Elizabeth Stakes, and the Benson and Hedges Gold Cup in England, and the Man o' War Stakes right here in America. She was already a thoroughbred millionairess, and this race, if she won it, would add another 91,000 plus to her already most imposing bankroll. She went postwards in this race at odds-on, 85 cents to the dollar. Her bevy of backers were not the least bit disappointed with her effort this day. On a firm grass course, she toted her 123-pound impost to front-running fractions of 47-1 for a half, 137-3 for a mile, and a final time of 2:40 for the 1 5/8 miles, while winning with veritable ease. She had in the process clipped a full second off the course record for the distance set by X in 1963, and she went the distance in 1 4/5 seconds faster than Secretariat had done just the year before in his winning effort. She had become the world's leading money-winning distafer and had pulled off something never done before in the entire illustrious annals of thoroughbred racing history. She won stakes races in 5 different countries: England, Ireland, France, America, and now Canada. She did have a nemesis, a la Noor de Citation, or affirmed to Aladar. That horse was named Ale France. The latter defeated our subject for this piece on all 6 occasions when they met over 3 racing seasons. Her lifetime statistics: 12 wins and 23 trips to the post, with composite earnings of better than $1,200,000. This classy lassie, who personified elegance, grace, poise, and stature on the racetrack, who firmly planted her hoof marks in the pages of chronicled racing history with capital letters, and capped off a marvelous career with that win at Woodbine, October 27, 1974, was the great Dahlia.
You're listening to HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Get ready for non-stop excitement at Laurel Park. Immerse yourself in heart-pounding live racing, indulge in mouth-watering culinary delights, and soak in the thrill of our electrifying events. Whether you're a die-hard racing fan or just out for a day of fun with loved ones, Laurel Park promises an unforgettable experience, no matter the season. Don't let the excitement pass you by. Head to laurelpark.com now for all the thrilling details. That's laurelpark.com.
There's a corner of Kentucky in Bourbon County, which some refer to as the Promised Land. There's something in the soil and water that make it something special. So special that some of the world's greatest horsemen have staked their claim in the soil just outside of Paris. Iconic names such as Claiborne, Coolmore, Stone, and Darley grace the fence lines which have housed champions for generations. The name Alapa shines as a tribute to the Gilded Age, sharing the stature and grandeur of its neighbors. Born from the wealth, passion, and imagination of Edward Sims, no expense was spared to fulfill his vision. Sims was in the same league as John Madden and Arthur B. Hancock Sr. as a commercial breeder. The torch has been passed. Welcome to Hill and Dale at Alapa.
Experience the excitement of Ontario racing with over $17 million in purses and programs. The Ontario Thoroughbred Improvement Program is loaded with TIP stakes, sales credits, purse bonuses, mare and foal incentives, and awards for both stallions and breeders. Visit tip.ontarioracing.com to learn more. That's tip.ontarioracing.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Trademark is locked and loaded and behind, nowhere to go. Straight Arrow's launching a wide rally. Il Miracolo's in the thick of it as well. Gasoline and Blue Devil as they hit the top of the stretch. Film Star First Mission head-to-head off the turn. First Mission digs in. Trademark pops outside. Third, second, and coming after First Mission now. 1 furlong to go. First Mission wanders to the far outside, but Trademark with momentum and the lead. Trademark takes over. First Mission fights him to the finish. Here's the wire. Photo! Oh, noses up and down. Trademark and First Mission inseparable on the wire.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires here on this Saturday morning. Mike Penna, Baron of the Backstretch, taking you right up until 11 a.m. Eastern. That was Travis Stone with the call of a incredible stretch battle yesterday at Churchill Downs in the Clark. It was won by Trademark for trainer Vicki Oliver, who is set to join us momentarily. We are efforting Vicki now as she is going to join us live from Churchill Downs. What an effort by Trademark. And how about this for Vicki Oliver? Fantastic stuff. She has won several great stakes in her career, but it had been since 2016 since she had won a great stake. She comes into 2023. She wins the Transylvania Stakes at Keeneland with Mo Stash, and then yesterday takes the Clark with Trademark. Fantastic year for her, and incredible effort by Trademark yesterday. She is indeed with us now here on HRRN. Vicki, good morning and congratulations.
Good morning. Thank you very much.
Are you still on Cloud 9 or what?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to believe, to be honest. Sometimes you'd like to watch it again, knowing that you have one, so then you can enjoy it a little more because it's so tense when you're watching it. I wasn't sure we got the head bob.
Yeah, it was dead tight, and really through the entire stretch. I mean, what a stretch battle. You had shades of Affirmed and Alidar, right?
Yeah. I mean, and that's what happened to him in the Lucas, and it was, and he ended up getting beat like just on the head bob as well, and I was glad we were on the other receiving end of it last night.
All right, take me through the race. You're sitting there watching it. First of all, where did you watch it, and what was going through your mind as you're watching everything unfold?
I watched it in the turn at Churchill next to the temporary paddock, and I usually kind of go off on my own. I didn't watch it with a whole group because I don't know why. Sometimes I get nervous. So I went and saw Buff Bradley because I actually watched it with Buff Bradley in the Lucas together. So I watched it with him. I was like, oh, he's good luck. So him and I watched it together. And I talked to Dela Cruz, and down the backside, I knew he had so much horse, and he loves the outside. He likes to stalk on the outside, and I could tell Dela Cruz couldn't get him to the outside, and he was just pinned in there. And it might have been a blessing in disguise where he didn't see daylight too soon and hit the front too early. So it might have worked out in our benefit.
Yeah, and then he dug in so gamely through the stretch. And you said you didn't know that you got the bob. When did you finally? Do you have to wait for the number to be posted?
Yeah, well, I thought we had it, and everyone's like congratulating me, and then it took a while. And I said, "Are you sure we have this?" and everyone's like, "Yeah, you got it." I was like, "I don't know. They're looking at it a long time." And so then I was like, and Scott Hazelton wanted to interview. I was like, "Let's wait till the numbers get posted." I was like, and then when I saw the green go up, and I was like, "Oh, we do have it." But it was when I saw the photo, it was tighter than I thought when I originally watched it live.
You know, Fernando de la Cruz was aboard for Trademark's most recent victory, which came at Indiana back on July 8th. Is he just a really good fit for this horse?
Yeah, I mean, he understands his horse. He rides him well. He sits real quiet on him, which, like I said, the horse, he always has a lot of horse, but he's not necessarily ranked. But De La Cruz has a way of just getting him to settle down the backside. And I guess he just runs for him. You know, he rode him just the same at Indiana, and he ran the same race. So I just figured they're a good fit.
Trademark's the type of horse that always seems to show up and run his race. He rarely throws in a clunker, and he's been knocking on the door with some pretty good competition. Was it starting to get a little frustrating for you, Vicki, that he wasn't getting that nose in front?
Yeah, I mean, I thought he ran so well all summer, and he ran so well in the Island. I wasn't disappointed in him, but he ran so hard, and then he ran back in that race at Churchill and the Lucas, and he ran so hard, and I really thought his day was going to be here in the Fayette, because on his home track, got to run out of his own barn, and then he just things didn't go right, and the track was really loose and dry that day, and he just didn't handle it. And then I guess it was a better match here for winning the Clark, anyways.
What things are you seeing from him at this point in his career that lead you to believe that he might even be getting better?
Yeah, I mean, that's what my assistant and I, Franklin, talk about all the time, I think, because he gallops him as well. And we just talk about how he just keeps working better, he keeps filling out, he keeps getting better. And it's he didn't really start to fill out until this year. So, I mean, I'm hoping we have a really big year next year with him. But he just seems to get better and better and stronger and stronger. And he's such a effortless horse when he trains. He's such a beautiful mover, and he's just so sound, and which makes it easier to train a horse like that. Because he's just such a good mover and so easy on himself.
Yeah, bred by the late former governor of Kentucky, Brereton Jones. We were just talking about him actually in the previous segment. Owned by BBN Racing. Tell me about the team associated with Trademark.
The team's great. We're all really good friends. Brian, I've known Brian for 25 years. Braxton, I've known my whole life. We've been best friends since we were little kids. And then Brendan O'Brien, who is Brian Klatsky's partner, who I've met, got to know very well the last 5 years, and they're the kind of all the managers of it all, and all the people that are in BBN are associated with someone. They usually know someone, and it's been a great network of people that everyone just enjoys being with. So it's a really fun time when we go to places and stay at places, or go to Tampa, or we go to Nashville for a night. When we go to Kentucky Downs, it's we're all good friends and we have a good time, and everyone enjoys it.
Vicki, I'm always curious when I see a horse like Trademark. He's now a 4-year-old gelding. You said looking for a big year next year, so he'll come back at age 5 again. As the trainer, when you have a horse like this that is now a Grade 2 winner, what do you have to do to make sure that you're keeping him on top of his game, so every time you send him out, you're hoping he's going to run a big race?
I mean, they have to tell you that a lot of times. Luckily for me, this horse loves to train, and he thrives on training. So that makes my job a lot easier. But you just have to keep an eye on how they're training, and if they're dull. But like I said, this horse thrives. The more he trains, the more he thrives. So I think it makes my job a little bit easier. But some of they're all different. Some of them can't string together races like this horse can. They get tired or they get sour. But luckily for me, that hasn't happened yet, and I hope it doesn't. But at some point, the Pegasus is on our radar, and maybe after the Pegasus, if he runs big there, we'll give a small break and just try to leg him up for the summer.
It doesn't seem possible. By the way, visiting with Vicki Oliver, fresh off that big win in the Clark yesterday at Churchill Downs with Trademark. Vicki, it doesn't seem possible that you would have to wait 7 years in between greatest stakes wins. It's kind of a head scratcher. What were the past 7 years like for you?
It's just, it's unfortunately, you just have to, it's kind of a grind sometimes. You get the horses, things don't kind of go your way, or, as well as I do, there's so many dynamics in this business that can go wrong, whether you have a really nice horse that comes off the turf, I'd bling over the summer or in September, rear at the break in the $1 million race, and I think it cost her the win. It's just, there can be so many things that can happen where it's just when it all does go together, it makes it all worth the while. But, it's a tough business to be in. Like I said, if you're having a really good year, you're winning 20% of the time, which means you're getting beat 80% of the time, so you just have to keep your head up and just keep going at it, because, sooner or later things will turn.
Is it difficult for a trainer to, to have to deal with losing, like you said, 80% of the time. You're still having a good year, but you lost 80% of the time. Is that difficult on a trainer mentally?
Yeah, but we're all peers together, so we all commiserate together as well. So your fellow trainers, we can all sit there and complain up there together. So like I've always told friends that ask about it, I was like, it's not necessarily a job, it's a lifestyle. Training horses is a lifestyle. You have to really love it and love the horses and love everything about it, because you couldn't just treat it as a job, because it intertwines with your personal life and everything else. So it just becomes, training horses in this industry, it becomes a lifestyle instead of a job, which, you have to really enjoy it to stay in it, because it's a lot of hours, a lot of time, a lot of disappointment. But luckily the highs like last night, overtake all the disappointment that you can have along the way.
Have you gone back and watched the replay of the race several times?
We did last night when we were in the champagne room, but I haven't actually seen it today.
Will you go back and watch it today at some point?
Yes. I have 4 in today, so I'm going to watch it on the way down to Churchill.
Yeah. Where are you going to be this winter, Vicki?
I leave horses here at Keeneland and run at Turfway, and then I'll have a barn down at Payson Park in Florida.
Yep.
And I usually run a lot of horses at Tampa. But usually those horses that come down there are horses that are going to have probably the month of December off, and then I leg them up down at Payson and bring them back up here for the spring for Keeneland.
Let's talk a little bit about the horses that you are going to be running this weekend on closing weekend at Churchill Downs. You're looking to continue this greatest stakes role with the Goldenrod later today. Dozen Diamonds, Rafael Bejarano will get the leg up from you there. Tell me more about Dozen Diamonds.
It's a new woman I trained for, Joanne Batchelor. She's a really nice lady who lives in Texas right now, and she bought her in a digital sale. And I had run her here. We were going to run her in a starter allowance here, and the race didn't go, and I ended up putting her in the A of the van, because she had broken her maiden for 25. But she'd shown a lot in the morning when I was training her, and she ran that big race here. And then now she's a 2 out of the van 2-year-old, which that limits your options of where you can run. And we've got no grass at the moment, so I thought she worked so good on the dirt. I had said to Joanne, I said, maybe we'll just try her on the dirt and see what happens. It's a guess. She works well on the dirt, but that doesn't always mean they'll run well on the dirt if they want the grass. So it's going to be a guess where we run. I mean, I'm looking for her to run a big race, but I'm not sure how she'll handle the dirt.
Inside post going 1 1/16 on the main track at Churchill. Any concerns there?
Yeah, I didn't prefer the 1 hole, to be honest with you. And there's a lot of speed, even though she went wire to wire here at Keeneland. The fractions weren't all that fast. I don't anticipate her to be on the lead today. I think being in the 1 hole, I think there'll be a couple horses that'll clear across her, where maybe she can just stalk outside. But, it just depends how she breaks. But the 1 hole does compromise her a little bit.
Yeah, well, Dozen Diamonds, a bit of a long shot in that race, 20-1 on the morning line, but you got to be in it to win it, right?
Exactly. I mean, they don't make any money sitting in the stall. And she's training great, and we'll give her a try, and then probably after this race we'll probably give her a little break and leg her up for the summer.
Now, another horse that you are familiar with is Lincoln Highway, and Lincoln Highway is entered in tomorrow's Commonwealth Turf Stakes. Tell me a little bit more about Lincoln Highway in that race.
Well, I really like this horse. I've always liked this horse. I've trained the entire family. I obviously trained Frivolous, and I've trained all her foals. And it's going to be off the turf, I believe, and I'm going to get the opportunity to try to see how he runs on the dirt. He has always trained really well on the dirt. All of her Frivolous was a total dirt horse, but all of her offspring have ended up being grass for some strange reason. But I'm going to see what he's going to do on the dirt, and I believe he'll really like if it's an off track as well, a sloppy track. He trains really good in the mud, so I look forward to running him if it does come off and see what we got on the dirt.
Yeah, it's so interesting because nobody really knows in this game, right? You think that the horse is going to handle the dirt because they train well in the mornings, but once the gates break open in the afternoons, it's a whole different ball game, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think a lot of those grass horses. I used to have that She's Not Here, that filly that won the Grade 2 out there in California 2 years in a row. She had trained so well on the dirt, and I had run her on the dirt first time out, and I couldn't believe how well she ran on the synthetic and ran really good. And I ran at Churchill, and she ran terrible. And then they ran around the dirt at Gulfstream, and I got beat a quarter of a mile. And I thought, how could I be so wrong? And then I put her on the grass, and there was then she won 2 grade 2s. But and some of those, they all do it really well. It's just, I think those turf horses, sometimes when you let them down and let their head go, they can't get a hold of it. They do it when they work good on it, but they just can't, when they really get to pushing on them on the dirt, I think it just gets away from them. They can't finish strong on it. So but like I said, you don't usually know until you run them on it.
Was that She's Not Here?
Yes.
That's the name of that.
The yellow ribbon, back to back, yeah.
Yep. And of course, Frivolous, who you mentioned earlier, won the Fall City, won the Fleur de Lis. So, plenty of dirt pedigree there, too.
Exactly. And Frivolous loved Churchill. She loved that racetrack. That was, that's the same with Trademark. He runs great race every time at Churchill. The only time he didn't run well was in the Pathé Mile when it was a one-turn mile. But it's Frivolous loved this track as well. So hopefully Lincoln Highway will as well.
Vicki, listen, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes on short notice. I reached out to you last night after that big win. I'm sure you were still in the champagne room when you were texting me, enjoying that victory, as you should be. All the best moving forward. Good luck today. Good luck tomorrow, and moving forward this winter, too. Let's keep it rolling.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, Vicki Oliver here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. That huge win yesterday in the Clark by Trademark, and she's having just a fantastic year here in 2023. When I come back, I'll get you ready for a jam-packed second hour of the program. We'll look ahead to Gulfstream, which kicks off on Friday, their championship meet. We'll talk about closing weekend at Churchill, talk a little bit more about that, and look ahead to Turfway with announcer Tony Calo. I'll tell you more when I come back. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
The National HBPA is continuously working to protect the health and welfare of horses by advocating and funding research to help reduce equine injuries, lobbying for a national testing lab to oversee and establish absolute uniform laboratory protocols, advocating for every track to undergo an annual independent surface assessment, passionately supporting off-the-track thoroughbred retirement facilities and adoption groups, and so much more. See additional HBPA initiatives at nationalhbpa.com.
Small cell lung cancer can affect anyone, not only smokers. The good news is early lung cancer screenings can detect small cell lung cancer before it spreads, when the disease is most treatable. Join Stand Up to Cancer and Jazz Pharmaceuticals to raise awareness of small cell lung cancer and accelerate the pace of research. Ask your healthcare provider about screening options that might be right for you or a loved one. Visit standuptocancer.org/lung to learn more.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Kelly Clarkson, and as the daughter of a school teacher, I know just how important education is. No matter how old you are or your situation, continuing to learn will enrich your life and help remove barriers you didn't even know were there. So much opportunity, y'all. Whether it's a foreign language, history, or a different way to look at things, take some time each day to learn something new. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
Joe Buck and John Smoltz welcoming you back to the City Center Convenience Mart. Well, John, the stage is set for the final transaction.
That's right, Joe. Heather's moment has arrived, and you just hope all that training pays off.
Heather lays down her purchase, but Randy rings it up as slowly as he can.
He is a wily veteran.
It gives Heather's eyes the chance to wander.
Uh-oh.
Yep, she's looking at the cigarettes.
There's nothing good back there. Quit now, and in 5 years, your odds of getting certain cancers drop 50%.
Meanwhile, Randy's stone-faced. He's giving nothing away. He just stands there, wetting his cashier's finger on that sponge.
Heather toes the rubber.
Here we go. Heather's arm is in motion. But instead of pointing at the back wall, she just grabs the gum off the counter.
That's a slick move.
Heather back, back, back. She is out of there. Even Randy tips his cap to Heather. Stand Up to Cancer and Rally wants you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
Thursday evenings, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern, is the Brisnet.com call-in show. It's your chance to call in and let the Horse Racing Radio Nation know what's on your mind. Call us at 888-966-HRRN. That's 888-966-4776. And discuss the topics you choose in the world of thoroughbred racing. The Brisnet.com call-in show. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
And they are coming with a flourish at the quarter pole. Favorite Trick is yet to start his run. Cape Town is gearing up. He's 5 lengths away. Top of the stretch, and Real Quiet gets the lead on the outside. Indian Charlie is under the whip in second. Cape Town will have to do more. Victory Gallop is running with Hallery Hunter on the far outside. But Real Quiet is at the 8th pole. He's got the lead by 2. Indian Charlie, Victory Gallop is still third, but he's coming. Real Quiet is a bit leg weary. Victory Gallop is trying. Here's the line. Real Quiet wins the 124th running of the Kentucky Derby.
Our very own Kurt Becker with the call of that Derby in 1998, won by Real Quiet, who used the Kentucky Jockey Club as a stepping stone to that Derby success in his 2-year-old campaign. Of course, Real Quiet didn't win the Kentucky Jockey Club that year, but he did win the Kentucky Derby the following May, and that's the one that counts. And my thanks to Kurt for that call. Fantastic stuff. Let's update you on the poll question here before I tell you what's ahead in hour number 2 and bring you your Kentucky Bred Spotlight brought to you by the KTA and KTOB. I'm asking you to let me know which winter meet are you most excited about this year? Fairgrounds, Gulfstream, Santa Anita, or other. And if you choose the other category, just comment and let me know which other meet you're looking forward to. So far, 43% of you are saying it's Gulfstream Park, 25% Fairgrounds, 10% Santa Anita. That's a little surprising. 22% selecting the other category. Michael says Oaklawn with their full fields. Kentucky Senator Damon Thayer, no surprise there. He says he's looking forward to Turfway Park. Tim says Oaklawn. Diane, the only place to be is Oaklawn. Billy says Turfway. Tom says he's not looking forward to any of the winter racing. And trainer Carl Broberg says Oaklawn Park is looks like that's what he's looking forward to. So, yeah, some great stuff there from our listeners on our social media pages. Tom sends an email to the show, and you can do that too. If you don't have social media, just send me an email, mike@horseracingradio.net. Tom says, looking most forward to the Oaklawn meet. So there you go. Keep those votes coming at HRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, or email the show, mike@horseracingradio.net. It is time now for your Kentucky Bred Spotlight, brought to you by the KTA, KTOB, and this is my opportunity to remind you that there is no better time to race and breed in Kentucky than right now, with lucrative opportunities such as $165 million plus in combined purse money paid out, which hit an all-time high at Kentucky's 5 racetracks in 2022, following the previous benchmark of more than $134 million, which was set in 2021. $113,806. That is the average purse per race in Kentucky, which outpaces all other leading racing jurisdictions, including Arkansas, New York, California, and Florida. And that number grew by 47% year over year. How about that? 8.8, that's the average field size in Kentucky, which is higher than Florida, New York, and California. And don't forget, too, you can reap the rewards with over $200 million, which has been distributed to Kentucky breeders since 2006, and with purse money soaring, with the KBIF contributing nearly $16 million to eligible breeders, the fullest fields in the country, and quality racing year-round, there is clearly no better time to race and breed in the Bluegrass. And how about this, too? With 9 winners at this year's Breeders' Cup World Championships, Kentucky Breds now have 249 Breeders' Cup victories. That's more than any other state or country. Kentucky Breds also made their presence felt around the world in 2023. City of Troy was honored as Cartier's 2-year-old Colt of the Year in Europe, and Opera Singer was honored as the 2-year-old filly of the year. Kentucky Bred King of Steel was the top 3-year-old trained in Britain. Breed them, raise them, race them. We all win. For more information on racing and breeding in Kentucky, visit KentuckyBreds.com. All right, hour 2 kicking off with Kevin Kerstein from Churchill Downs. He's going to take a look ahead to the closing weekend stakes. He'll also look ahead to Turfway, which begins on Wednesday. Brian Nadeau going to join me from Gulfstream Park at 9:20 to talk about the championship meet, which opens on Friday. And newly named Turfway announcer Tony Calo will be with me at 9:40. That should be a fun visit. James Scully has the TwinSpires Triple play at 10 o'clock. 10:20, Kurt Becker takes you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. And at 10:30, I ask, they answer. Dale and Tim will be here to tackle some of the sport's hottest topics. It is all ahead. Hour 2 begins next after a 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
Welcome back. Hour 2 of 3 here on the Horse Racing Radio Network, the Equine Forum, all presented by our friends at TwinSpires. Don't forget, you can bet the Derby Futures at TwinSpires this weekend. You have until 6 Eastern tomorrow to get your wagers in there and play all the races around the country this weekend at TwinSpires. If you missed any portion of the first hour of the program, that really emotional visit with David Pope during Unsung Heroes, fantastic stuff there, or the conversation with Vicki Oliver just a short time ago. All you have to do is head back to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can listen to the podcast whenever you get some time, and you can do that on every podcast platform as well. Simply type in Horse Racing Radio Network and follow along with all the shows we bring your way each and every week, but this show in particular, one that you will not want to miss. Well, Kevin Kerstein is with us now. He handles all of the racing communications for the Kentucky racetracks, including Churchill Downs, and it is closing weekend beneath the TwinSpires. Kevin, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. How you doing?
Yeah, doing really, really well. You know, I saw the tweet you posted, I believe it was last night, when you showed the TwinSpires lit up in red and blue to honor the Governor's Cup rivalry game, which is coming up today between UK and Louisville. Louisville, about a 7.5-point favorite in that one, but I thought that was a really cool shot.
Yeah, I'm getting blasted on there from all the Louisville fans. They're mad that we didn't have it just red, or we're honoring some of the Cats fans out there. So I got blasted on social media, but hey, it's all right. It'll be a fun game. Louisville's 7.5-point favorite, and it'll be good background action for the great racing this afternoon at Churchill.
Yeah, the racing, tremendous. We saw great racing the past couple of days, too, on Thanksgiving. And then, of course, yesterday with the Clark, I had a chance to visit with Vicki Oliver just a short time ago. What a race that was, huh?
I mean, what a thrilling race. You know, Trademark sort of does his best running here at Churchill Downs. And, you know, once he sort of got outside of horses and, Fernando de la Cruz is a very underrated jockey who rides very well at Horseshoe Indianapolis. And, saw him got a couple of big chances. He rode Get Smoking at Kentucky Downs earlier this year, to win $1 million race. And, he's as good as, they come. And, First Mission fought back. I thought, maybe the head bob, he had the better head bob, but, Trademark got his nose down on the wire just in time. It was a very thrilling addition of the Clark. And, hopefully bigger and better things are in his future into early next year.
Yeah, Vicki said, of course, he's a gelding, so she said that she's expecting big things from him in 2024. They'll keep him rolling and see if he can continue to improve. She feels like maybe he's even getting better at this point in his career.
That's very impressive, especially, where, there's not, a whole lot of definitive favorites in the older horse division. And so moving into races like the Pegasus next year and, looking even forward to the Breeders' Cup Classic picture, it's good to have a horse like this who's, going to stick around for a little bit. And, he's a very tough horse. And so it was good to see the Oliver camp and BBN Racing. They were very excited. It was a very, fun winter circle last night for the Clark. And, First Mission ran well, too. I do think that, he can improve off of that race, and he's going to be a solid horse moving forward as well.
12 races on this Saturday program at Churchill Downs. First post, 1 p.m. You have the 2 Grade 1s. This is the Stars of Tomorrow 2 program. The Grade 2 Goldenrod for the 2-year-old fillies, the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club for the 2-year-old boys. Listen, really rock-solid fields from start to finish here, and there are some great wagering opportunities right from race 1 all the way through. You have to be really thrilled with the way this whole card came together.
Yeah, absolutely. It's sort of like, ever since, the spring meet, you sort of see the influx of 2-year-olds coming into Churchill Downs, and it's going to take a little bit for them to mature and get ready. And you're really seeing it come to fruition here in the back half of this year, and especially this card. The Stars of Tomorrow cards were inaugurated in 2005 here at Churchill Downs, and ever since they were inaugurated, they've produced more than 50 Grade 1 winners. Horse of the Year, Gun Runner has run here, Kentucky Derby winners, Super Saver, Oaks winners, Secret Oath, Pretty Mischievous in the last couple of years. So, you're seeing some of these top horses into their 3-year-old seasons make their starts here at the Stars of Tomorrow card, and 12 races on tap this afternoon, including, the Road to the Kentucky Derby resuming here with the Kentucky Jockey Club, a solid field of 8 that was entered in there. But you're going to see, even if the horses in some of these races don't win, they run second, third, or fourth, you're going to see them into the calendar year as they, go to their winter bases, ones to keep an eye on into next year, because it's certainly, some very competitive races. Some of the top 2-year-olds that I think are based here at Churchill Downs have aimed for this day for the last several weeks. So lots of fun horses, 12 races, as you mentioned, great gambling opportunities, 1 o'clock first post.
Yeah, I think the other thing that's really neat about this particular program is that if you're looking ahead to the Oaks and the Derby next year, which, let's face it, we're still 161 days away, but it's never too early to get Derby fever. The winner of the Kentucky Derby may be racing at Churchill Downs today, but maybe not in the Kentucky Jockey Club. It might be in one of the allowance races or the maiden races on the undercard, and that's true for the Kentucky Oaks as well. I think that, Kevin, is what really makes this program so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it runs coinciding with our Kentucky Derby Future Wager Pool number 2, which will close on Sunday. And so there's several interests in this Kentucky Derby Future Wager that are running today, and not just in the Kentucky Jockey Club. They're in, an allowance race that's, going to be one of those races that I think a lot of people may keep an eye on, because they'll jump on the Road to the Kentucky Derby after that. That'll go as race number 7, a very competitive first-level allowance going a 1-turn mile. So that's going to be a race that I think will produce a next out stakes runner. And then, as you mentioned, both the fillies and the colts, there's going to be races. There's a race 2, there's a maiden race for the boys that I know there's a lot of horses that are getting some buzz around the backside that they've aimed for this race. So, you may see horses there you want to keep an eye on. And there's a 2-turn maiden race for the fillies going after race number 5 that some of the top fillies, I think, that are based here in Kentucky that are aiming for that race. So it's going to be a fun card top to bottom. You've got your maidens, your allowances, your stakes. What more could you ask for?
Kevin, I started the show this morning talking about the future pool number 2 and the fact that Fierceness was installed as the 15-1 morning line favorite, or at least wagering favorite among the individual choices in that pool. He's now down to 11-1 as of this morning. And I pointed out the fact that if you're taking him at 11-1 sitting here on November 25th, you're banking on the fact that he is going to continue to be as dominant as he was in the juvenile all the way through the Road to the Kentucky Derby until the first Saturday in May, because he's going to be a much shorter price if he does that, and the 11-1 is going to look like great value that you got here on November 25th. What's your approach and your strategy when you're playing future wagers?
Especially with this pool that runs coinciding with the Sire Future Wager. So I'm going to do a lot of math come Sunday, like around the 5 o'clock hour. So the Future Wager pool number 2 will close on Sunday at 6 o'clock, and then the Sire Future Wager will close a half hour later. So I always like to look at, who the sires are and what their progeny in pool 2 and see if there's any odds discrepancies. And the other approach that I like to do in the Future Wager is in the with all others being such a heavy favorite at probably it'll close at 3-5 or 4-5 is there any value using some horses in exactas with that all others? And so I'll look at some of the exacta probables as the pool comes to a close on Sunday and see if there's some value there, because maybe with Fierceness being such a short price and you have such a long time to go until Kentucky Derby 150. Is there going to be some value maybe using him in some exactas with some others, including the all-other category, that may be worthwhile to sit on a wager for the next 160 days?
Interesting. Kevin Kerstein with me here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Let's dive into what we're going to see later today at Churchill. I want to talk about the Goldenrod and the Kentucky Jockey Club, but what other races are you going to have your eye on later today?
I'm very excited for the Ed Brown this afternoon, which is a 6.5 furlong sprint stake for open company 2-year-olds. And in that race, you're going to see a very future star in my mind in the number 9 Booth. He is trained by Steve Asmussen. He ran a very, fast speed figure on debut at Keeneland. When he was 5-1 that day, he defeated Nash, who came back to absolutely romp by 10 lengths here at Churchill Downs in a 2-turn main special weight. Steve Asmussen has only, run this horse going sprint distances so far. He's by Matoli, but he's out of a Bellamy Road mare. And in the pedigree, especially on the bottom side, he's a half to a horse named Bright Future who won the Jockey Club Gold Cup. And so there's some route pedigree with this horse. And so even though he's running these sprint distances to kick off his career in his first 2 starts, I think he's one that a lot of fans will need to keep an eye on the road to the Kentucky Derby. And he's in that Pool 2 future wager, and Matoli is in the Kentucky Derby Sire future wager as well. So, I think he has a very bright future for the Asmussen camp, and I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up on the road to the Kentucky Derby after this race, stretching out to a longer distance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very interesting race, being a sprint race at this point in their career, which is probably where most of these 2-year-olds that we're going to see moving forward into the Derby preps next year, they're probably at this point in their careers right now, where a lot of these horses haven't even tried 2 turns yet, but they're getting a lot of buzz because of what they've done at shorter distances. The Ed Brown 6.5 furlongs goes as race 9, 4:48 Eastern is the post. There is another race, another stakes race that is not one of the 2 greatest stakes. That is the Fern Creek Stakes. Tell me more about that one.
Yeah, so the Fern Creek goes as the 12th race finale. It's an all-stakes late pick 4 this afternoon here at Churchill Downs. And so the Fern Creek is for the fillies, the counterpart to the Ed Brown, where you almost had me, who defeated Open Company in the Kentucky Juvenile back in May. She's going to be the headliner in this race. She's 8-5 on the morning line for the Brad Cox camp. She was originally trained by John Hancock and was a private purchase for a big partnership. She's a daughter of Oxbow and out of a good and tough mare. So really the pedigree isn't like anything that's, a blue bred type of pedigree, but she looks to be a very intriguing prospect in this race. From a handicapping standpoint, there's a lot of speed signed on in this race. And so, drawing the rail, I think she may be in a little bit more of a difficult position. Gambling wise, I like the horse just to her outside, the number 2 Fibber. She's trained by Brett Calhoun, who I've always liked in her preparations here at Churchill Downs, who could close from just off the pace. But it's a very, competitive field of 12 fillies. Lots of speed signed in here. Helena's Forte for Phil Bauer was a very impressive debut winner at Churchill, and the Phil Bauer camp, can't be doing anything wrong right now. They're winning with almost everything they send out. So she's certainly going to take some action in this race. But the 12th race, Fern Creek, the counterpart to the Ed Brown, 6:18 p.m. Eastern Time, first post as the 12th race finale.
Yep, 9, 10, 11, 12, that all-stakes pick 4. Let's dive into the 2 greatest stakes, which are going to be sandwiched in the middle of the 2 stakes we just talked about. Race 10 is the Grade 2 Goldenrod. Race 11, the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club. Let's start with the Goldenrod, the 2-year-old fillies, 1.1 miles on the main track. Who do you have your eye on here, Kevin?
Torpedo Anna's the 8-5 morning line choice, and she's making her 3rd start in just 5 weeks for the Kenny McPeak camp, but she's been so impressive in both of her career starts, winning by 8.5 lengths in her debut in an auction maiden special weight race. So it was a maiden special weight that horses had to start that were only eligible for an auction price of $50,000 or less, and she was purchased for $40,000 or less. So she fit this level of race and just completely dominated her competition at Keeneland, then came back here at Churchill Downs on November the 10th and won a first-level allowance by 9 lengths, and she was as impressive that day as you can be. Is it too much too soon? We'll see, but she's been very dynamic in both of those starts. She takes on the undefeated West Coast Sunset, who was a 6 3/4 length winner on Stars of Tomorrow 1 in the Rags to Riches. She gets a fast track this afternoon. She was running over the slop last time out. We'll have to see how she handles things. And then you have Central Avenue in this race, too. And last time out, she finished second to just FYI, who won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. So not bad running lines there. She's trained by Mike Stidham, owned by Godolphin. If she can handle, things around 2 turns for the first time, she's very dangerous in here as well. So it's a fun field of 8 fillies that'll go in the Goldenrod. It's on the road to the Kentucky Oaks prep season. 10-5, 3-2-1 points up for grabs for the first Friday in May.
And that's 5:18 Eastern is the 10th race on the program. It's followed by the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club at 5:48. The 2-year-old boys and we said this at the beginning of the conversation, Kevin, the winner of the Derby might be racing at Churchill Downs today, might come out of the Kentucky Jockey Club, might be another race on the undercard. What do you think about the Kentucky Jockey Club this year?
Yeah, it's a very competitive field. I don't know, in Jockey Club's past, there's been some more accomplished horses, I would say, that have entered the Jockey Club, but it's very competitive and a little bit of a puzzle. So Riskett is the 5-2 morning line favorite, and he exits the Iroquois in mid-September at Churchill Downs. And the big thing that the Iroquois that a lot of people are taking away from that race is it was such a collapsing pace when they went 22-1, 44-3. But he was the closest one to that pace, where there was a runaway leader in that race named Patriot Spirit who ended up fading around the far turn. But he was sort of the one that, stuck around for things after the rest of the field collapsed. Third place finisher Liberal Arts came back to win the Street Sense on Stars of Tomorrow 1. So at least he came back to win a race. So it's really what you think of the Iroquois and what you make of his effort if you're going to back him in this race. Undefeated stretch ride, breaks just to his inside, owned by the West Point Thoroughbreds and trained by Dale Romans. He certainly hasn't gotten respect at the windows in his first two starts, even though he's undefeated. He was 13-1 on debut and then came back and won a first-level allowance by 5 blanks at 9-1. So he's certainly has the accolades to fit with this field. And then Awesome Road from the rail for the Brad Cox team. I will probably take some action. He won on debut at Ellis Park and then just didn't run a step last time out down at Keeneland in the Breeders' Futurity. So if you can forgive that race, maybe he can run back to his maiden race and, go back to his form that he showed on debut. But it's, a competitive field of 8, not the most accomplished that we've seen in Kentucky Jockey Club's past, but a great betting race that'll go in race number 11, 548. Again, the same point structure as the Goldenrod on the road to the Kentucky Derby on the prep season. 10 points to the winner, followed by 5, 3, 2, 1 for the next 4 finishers in this race.
Kevin, I was hoping to get a chance to talk with you about the opening of the Turfway meet on Wednesday, but we'll have to wait for announcer Tony Calo to join me at 9:40 Eastern because we're just about out of time. But I do want to ask you about tomorrow's Churchill program. Another solid card to close things out here for the fall meet. Tell me a little bit more about that particular card tomorrow.
Yeah, again, 12 races on the program tomorrow to close things out. Mandatory payout in all the wagers and full fields. Lots of people wanting to enter here to try and close things out here locally before they ship off for the winter time. So it's a fun card tomorrow. First post is at 1 o'clock. The Commonwealth Turf was the featured event on the turf. We have been taking our races off the turf for the remainder of the meet. But if you look at this field, there's several dirt horses that entered this race. So I don't think it's going to scratch down too much because there were several connections that took a chance that this race may be taken off the turf, and it is. So I think it'll be a fairly competitive field that'll go in race number 11 tomorrow.
Kevin, enjoy every minute of closing weekend and enjoy that Governor's Cup rivalry game later today, too.
Make sure you tell Tony Calo no pressure, all 12-horse fields on opening night at Turfway.
I will do it. You got it, my friend. Appreciate it, Kevin. Thanks, buddy. Kevin Kerstein here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. When I come back, we turn our attention to South Florida and Gulfstream Park, getting set to open their championship meet on Friday. I'll be joined by Brian Nadeau to talk about that meet next. This is the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Hey everyone, it's the Baron with this week's North of the Border Report presented by Woodbine Entertainment. Naptown, a 2-year-old son of Munnings, takes on 9 rivals in the $250,000 Coronation Futurity, part of today's Woodbine card that also features the $250,000 Princess Elizabeth Stakes. The 1 1/8 Coronation Futurity, a Tapeta event for Canadian foal 2-year-olds, is a significant race on the road to the 165th running of the King's Plate, which takes place August 17th of next year. The 1 1/16 Princess Elizabeth is a key event on the path to the 69th running of the Woodbine Oaks, the first jewel of the Canadian Triple Tiara Series. Trainer Graham Motion, looking for his first Coronation Futurity triumph, will send out Naptown, who arrives at his latest test off an emphatic maiden-breaking score at Woodbine on October 29th. Motion, who recently reached the 2,700 win plateau, is looking forward to Naptown's return engagement at Woodbine. Owned by Robert LaPenta and Madikit Stables, Naptown will have the services of jockey Rafael Hernandez. Other Coronation Futurity starters include Frost King Stakes winner No More Options and Bull Page winner Zippy Gizmo. The Princess Elizabeth has drawn 9 hopefuls, a field that includes Sounds Practical. Trained by John Mateen for owners RCC Racing Stable and Realm Racing Stables, the daughter of Practical Joe took charge early in her most recent start and went on to record a 3.5-length maiden score. Mateen expects Sounds Practical to be up for the challenge. Other starters include Irosa, winner of the Catch a Glimpse Stakes, Hurricane Claire, winner of the Muskogee Stakes, South Ocean Stakes winner Olivia Rose, and War Painter, who took the Victorian Queen Stakes. First post is 1:05 p.m. And that's your North of the Border report for this Saturday morning. For more updates and racing information, visit woodbine.com or follow along on both Twitter and Instagram at WoodbineTB.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Forte's locked in as Mage begins to roll from the back. They race past the quarter-mile pole in the Florida Derby, and Mage got the jump on Forte as he goes to get Fort Bragg. Cyclone Mischief is fighting hard. He's still right there. Less than a quarter of a mile to come, and Cyclone Mischief, he's up for a fight and tries to turn away Mage. Forte better hurry up. Final 16th of a mile. Forte starts to gather in the top horses. Here comes Forte. This is going to be very close, but the champion prevails. Forte wins over Mage was second. Third, Cyclone Mischief. Then Mr. Ripple, Fort Bragg for the high five. He gave you a scare, but he got it done. On to Louisville for Forte.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. Pete Aiello bringing them home in the Florida Derby earlier this season. Forte getting the victory, and we know what happened afterwards, not being able to compete in the Kentucky Derby. But the Florida Derby producing another Kentucky Derby winner with Mage taking home the top honors. Fantastic stuff. And the championship meet getting ready to begin on Friday. 68 stakes worth more than $14 million in purses, highlighted by that Florida Derby. You got the Pegasus World Cup Invitational. My goodness, so many great races coming up at Gulfstream this winter, and nobody knows that better than Brian Nadeau, who is the handicapper and analyst at Gulfstream, and he's with me now here on HRRN. Brian, good morning.
Mikey, good morning to you. Always good to hear from you, and hope you had a good holiday with the family.
Yeah, same to you, my friend. And, looking forward to a special treat coming up on Friday. It's always great when you see the horses return to South Florida and start racing there at Gulfstream for the championship meet. So many lucrative opportunities coming up.
Yeah, without a doubt. And, turf racing too, Mike. And I think that's a really big deal, especially this time of year. And, we know what's been going on throughout the country and the weather and this, that, and the other thing. So on Friday, we'll unveil the new and much improved turf course. We've already drawn Friday. We're drawing 7 days out down here. So no excuses not to get to work, but we can't wait. We're already seeing, and we have been for the last, I'll say, month or so, an influx of some new barns or some familiar faces that are now back. And it certainly just gets ramped up next Friday. We go 3 days next Friday, and then the following week we start racing on Thursday. And there's just a lot of excitement down here.
Brian, that new turf course is going to be under a microscope, and it's going to be in the headlines over the course of the first several weeks of the meet. What's different about this turf course as opposed to the one that it replaces?
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt about it, Mike. You're 100% right. But they replaced it. They kind of redid the drainage as well. And I think last year, where maybe we thought we could just kind of get by and do some maintenance to it, and I think we realized, you know what, we've got to start anew, and that's certainly what we have. And Samantha, my partner, did a video, and you can see it out there. And Aaron Greider gave it a little test run, and it looks phenomenal, Mike. So we need turf racing over the winter. We pride ourselves in that, and we card, as you know, and everybody knows, several races a day on the turf, and a lot of those 68 stakes that you mentioned, Pegasus World Cup turf, they're on the turf, so we're really looking forward to it, and we have no reservations going in that it wouldn't hold up and it wouldn't do its thing.
I always find the championship meet extremely challenging from a handicapping perspective because you typically have big fields, you have horses coming from all over the country, and you just they come to that South Florida humidity, and you just don't know how they're going to handle it, and there's so many variables involved when you're trying to bet those races. Talk to me about the challenges you face, Brian, having to analyze those races day in and day out.
Yeah, it's difficult, Mike. There's no two ways about it. It's a lot like Saratoga. You get a melting pot of everybody kind of coming in from all over and aiming for it, and it's difficult. You got to do your homework. A lot of replay, video work, I think, is important to get a feel for the horses. We've got a lot of new barns down here this winter as well, so got to do a little research on that kind of aspect of it too, and then certainly the 3 different surfaces. So as a handicapper, it's tough to kind of figure out how the track might be playing with, we spread it around down here. You've got the turf certainly, but you've got the Tapeta, you've got the main track, and kind of taking diligent notes or just taking note of where horses are coming from in races and how they're performing. And the Tapeta, it's not an end-all, be-all, but can be a little bit dicey down inside, can be a little quicksandish kind of. So you take note of those kind of things. And then certainly the turf course, we haven't run a race on it, but let's be honest, it's South Florida. We're going to hope to have a good, firm, hard turf course, and that typically, you want to have some speed on those type of courses. You see that at Santa Anita, our sister track. You see it at Del Mar as well. So you need to factor that kind of thing into your handicapping too. And I think the other thing too, Mike, is important is to note which kind of barns are all in down here, so to speak. You're going to see some barns that are, I don't want to say they're not trying to win, but, maybe it's a leg up to start the campaign kind of thing as opposed to some other barns that are, they're here to win, and they're here to win right now.
Brian, you mentioned something very interesting in the beginning of your comments there. You said you have to do your homework, and it's a lot of replay work, watching replays. When you sit down and you start watching replays of horses that are coming into Gulfstream Park from other parts of the country, what's the proper way to watch a race replay? What things specifically are you looking for when you sit down to watch it?
I always make sure I have the chart pulled up when I'm watching a replay because I want to get an idea how the race unfolds, where the top 3 to 4 finishers are coming from. If I see in the chart at the pace call the top 3 horses are 1, 2, 3, I already know right away that this is a race that played to speed or didn't play to stalk or closer. So you get an idea how the race is going to unfold even before it runs. And I think that's important because right away you know that if you're a horse that wants to come from off the pace, you are compromised in the race. And then certainly, you want to look at trips, turf racing especially. That's going to be such a topic throughout the course of the winter. We're going to run a lot of turf races down here. Turf races, as you know, Mike, it's all about trips and getting the right trip. And it's almost got turf racing almost has a derby kind of feel to it, and that the best horse doesn't always win. So trips are important on the turf. And then as a card on the whole, let's say, I'll take Churchill Downs as an example. Unfortunately, they're not running on turf. Okay, so what that means, though, is you get 9 dirt races a day. So if you've got Churchill horses coming in and you watch that card, if you look at the charts of that card and you see they ran 9 dirt races and 7 of them were won by horses, let's say first or second at the pace call, well, you know right away that was a very speed-favoring track or a track that maybe carried or catered to horses that wanted to be close early. So maybe you elevate some horses that you see at Gulfstream Park that were coming from off the pace and made a little dent that day, as opposed to maybe a horse that got loose and walked on the lead and nobody challenged him. Maybe you downgrade that kind of horse. So that kind of all goes into it.
Brian Nadeau with me here live from Gulfstream Park, getting ready for the championship meet coming up on Friday. As he said, they've already drawn that opening day card, drawing 7 days out. I like that, Brian. I don't think there's any reason not to do that.
Mike, that line forms behind me, okay, because it's a busy time of the year. Just as a public handicapper that's, very busy, it's great to have them 7 days out, and I wholeheartedly agree with you. I don't see a big down detractor to that. Gets everybody, I think, involved and excited. Let's just say, we're going to have the Pegasus at the end of January, and when we're going to draw that card, that Pegasus World Cup is on January the 27th, and when we draw that card on, the 20th, it's going to be, you got a week of excitement to mull over those past performances and look it over. So I couldn't agree with you more, Mike. I think from a working standpoint, it helps out a lot, but certainly from the bettors and the handicappers, you get something to look forward to 7 days out.
It's funny, when I think about the Gulfstream Championship Meet, I think about when I was really first getting introduced to racing. I tell the story a lot that when I saw Easy Goer win the Travers at Saratoga, it was the first time I remember going to the races with my buddies, and I was hooked on the sport from that very moment. I fell in love with Easy Goer, and then along came horses like Holy Bull, and then later for me, I remember Pulpit and watching him down at Gulfstream Park too, and I really liked Pulpit. What are some of the moments when you think back on Gulfstream Park, when you hear Championship Meet, you think about the winter meet there, what are some of the moments that in the past stand out to you?
Well, you were Easy Goer just a little before my time, but, I picked right up with kind of what you were saying with Pulpit. And I always kind of feel like the earliest moments might be the ones that stick out, but you think of those Cigar and Skip Away and Formal Gold and those battles. Barron's was down there.
Yeah.
The Don, which is now the Pegasus. The Gulfstream Park Handicap used to be a grade one. And all those, I can remember a 3-year-old allowance race with Lil's Lad and Hallery Hunter. And it's just so cool that, everybody's kind of there. And, the gang's all here and you got to get started. I remember Birdstone coming back and winning an allowance race. And just stuff like that is, you see that down here, and I know the game has changed a little bit, obviously, and everybody's adapted, and things don't quite work that way anymore. But it's cool to be on a Wednesday or Thursday, and we might card a maiden special weight. I think my Narcos broke his maiden, they're early in the meet in a kind of a random maiden special weight, and he goes on to win the Kentucky Derby. So all of those things are kind of in play down here, and that's where the excitement builds. Obviously you've got the big Saturdays that are each and every weekend, and the huge Saturdays that are 3 or 4 times during the meet. But you're going to have those kind of races on a random Wednesday or Thursday where you get a maiden special weight and you say, holy cow, this horse can run. And, all of a sudden she might be in the Gulfstream Park Oaks or Kentucky Oaks. So it's that time of year, Mike. And of course, hope always springs eternal with the 2-year-olds that are going to be 3 pretty soon.
Yeah, just remember, you never would have heard a cigar if Holy Bull stayed healthy. Keep in mind, Holy Bull was 30 cents on the dollar in that Don handicap back in 1995 when he was pulled up, and Cigar went on to win that race and then, of course, continued on with that incredible win streak. But Holy Bull was a heavy favorite over Cigar that day. Keep that in mind.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And that's kind of, I think Cigar came in off a win, what is now the Cigar Mile, but he certainly wasn't the house horse like Holy Bull was, and that's where it really kind of got started.
Yeah, you know who was behind Cigar in that Don handicap? I actually just pulled up the chart. Remember the name Primitive Hall?
Yeah, Primitive Hall.
Remember that horse?
I remember Cigar had a good stablemate back then too, Jerry with a G and an
Yes.
I.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Primitive Hall was second. Remember Kissin' Chris? Kissin' Chris was in that race, finished fourth underneath the late David Penna. Yep.
Yeah, those were exciting times. And listen, the Pegasus is shaping up. We don't know. We'd like to think / hope and hold out hope that we'll see White Abario. We certainly got local connections with C2 Racing, and maybe we get the Derby winner back in Mage. That would be exciting as well. But with $3 million on the line, we're not going to lap for talent in the Pegasus World Cup, that's for sure.
No, not at all. Brian, listen, man, I really appreciate it. I know you've got a busy week ahead of you, so I'll let you go, but really appreciate you taking some time. It's always fun to catch up. Enjoy the championship meet, and I'm sure we're going to be talking throughout the meet. I'll get you back on the program, and we'll talk about some of the top races as we get into the meet a little bit.
Yeah, Mike, I look forward to it. It's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, and happy holidays. We'll catch up soon.
You too, buddy. Brian Nadeau here on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Yeah, just looking at this chart, though, the year that Cigar won the Don Handicap, he and Holy Bull were together pretty much when Holy Bull was pulled up in distress under Mike Smith. That was his final career start. Thankfully, he was fine, and he was able to go on to a productive stallion career. But you had Primitive Hall second under Joe Bravo. Bonus Money was third. Kissing Chris was fourth. These are just names that I remember as I was really getting interested in racing back in the mid-'90s. Virginia Rapids under John Luke Samine was in that race. Remember Willenda, ridden by Herb McCauley? Willenda was in there too. That was a pretty solid renewal of the Don that year in 1995. But so many great moments have taken place at Gulfstream Park. And again, the Florida Derby is a race that is unparalleled when it comes to producing the winner of the Kentucky Derby. We'll see if it happens again in 2024. Coming up next, I'll turn our attention to Turfway Park as I welcome the new announcer at Turfway, Tony Calo, who is the longtime caller at Finger Lakes in New York. He'll talk about his new gig at Turfway coming up next here on the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN, Horse Racing's voice.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Airdrie Stud is proud to announce the arrival of Grade 1 winning millionaire Happy Saver for the 2023 season. Happy Saver boasts one of the most important female families of the century, as his third dam is Broodmare of the Year Weekend Surprise, dam of the legendary AP Indy. Undefeated in his first 5 starts, Happy Saver capped off his perfect 4-for-4 season with an emphatic victory in the historic Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
And Happy Saver stays undefeated. He steps up and he wins the Grade 1 Jockey Club Gold Cup.
Airdrie Studs, Happy Saver. Think about it.
Achieve Equine, makers of Flair Equine Nasal Strips, brings you innovative, evidence-based products for the health and well-being of your equine athletes, like the new Impact Protection Half Pad from Europe, VIP Equestrian, that provides a superior layer of cushioning for the horse's back. Visit achieveequine.com for more information on the innovative products we offer. That's achieveequine.com. Breathe easy, we've got your back.
Adina Stallions set the gold standard, all #1 in their category. Point of entry, the #1 stallion by black type and greatest stakes winners standing in Canada.
Oh, the classy point of entry would not be denied.
Shaman Ghost, the #1 second crop sire standing in Canada.
It's Shaman Ghost, an overwhelming force in the last 16th of a mile.
Signature Red, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type winners standing in Canada.
Signature Red won his second Highlander in a row.
And Silent Name, the #1 stallion by percentage of black type performers standing in Canada. A list that includes Grade 1 winner Silent Poet.
Silent Poet in front. Admiralty Pier out the ground, but Silent Poet has won the Highlander Stakes.
And don't forget Adina's new sire, American Guru. His first crop are now yearlings of 2023. American Guru, the son of Unbridled Song, whose family have already set their gold standards around the world.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Turning into the stretch in the 50th running of the New York Derby, and here's Maker's Candy to confront Allure of Money, and it's a good race at the 8th pole. Allure of Money and Luis Perez, Maker's Candy and Jose Ortiz, they put on a show in the New York Derby. Allure of Money and Maker's Candy, Allure of Money. The local hero does it. Allure of Money and the Diamond Man, Luis Perez. Maker's Candy was second, long ways back to Mo Trump in third.
Welcome back to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires. That's the way it sounded in the New York Derby at Finger Lakes. Allure of Money getting the victory, and that's the voice you have heard at Finger Lakes for many, many years now. Tony Calo, you're going to get an opportunity to hear him at Turfway Park coming up on Wednesday as that meet begins, and the holiday meet running all the way through December 30th, and then the winter spring meet, which is going to span January 3rd to March 30th. And Tony, kind enough to spend some time with me now. Mr. Calo, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, really excited to talk about Turfway and to talk about your story. Let's start with Turfway. You get the news that you're going to get that position and start calling this winter. What went through your mind when you got the call and found out it was going to be you?
Well, I was very honored, very humbled, super excited, super nervous. Luckily, I got to call some races there last season, so I have a little bit of expectations as far as the booth and everything else. Turfway presents a few problems. Nighttime racing, I'm no spring chicken anymore, but luckily the place lights up pretty good. I have to learn new colors, new horses, new connections, so every race is kind of like a maiden race all over again, with the exception of a few of the better allowance and stakes horses that I'm familiar with. But, luckily last year, I'm so thankful I got 5 days in last year because it really has me, knowing what to expect. As far as coloring, I've never colored in my career. As far as memorizing my horses, I learned under Michael Rona, and he basically taught me to try to memorize them to the best of the abilities, and I've never really applied the crayon technique, but those 5 days last year at Turfway, boy, I was coloring like a kindergarten.
Well, other than the racing at night and having to deal with the lights and all those types of things, what makes Turfway a bit of a challenge?
Well, the level of the booth doesn't help matters, and that's not a knock, on anything. It just is what it is. It's just not high enough, in my opinion. I've called a lot of venues around the country, and kind of reminds me of Sam Houston. I got to fill in at Sam Houston, or I got to audition at Sam Houston back in the mid-'90s, and the booth's just not high enough. When you don't get a high enough booth, you get more of a head-on view, or more of a parallel view instead of getting that 45-degree angle down. Obviously Turfway with the big fields and just the nature of synthetic racing, that's going to cause complications. I've been spoiled since I left Northern California. Every racetrack I've worked at has had unified caps. So every time the one comes on, I know I've got a red cap and to a white cap, et cetera. Back at, here at Kentucky Racing, you get the traditional style with the owner silks and the owner caps. So just going to take a little bit of time. A lot of studying on my behalf. Luckily, Formulator allows you to get right into the replays. And, I've been a student of the game, so there's all sorts of tricks you got to be able to do. But it's going to have your moments. It's going to have my moments where I'm a little confused with who might be who at a certain point of a race. But we just got to try to hope to get through it and do the best we can. I just ask for a little patience, everybody. It's not going to be like Finger Lakes where I've known every horse for 15 years and not trying to make any excuses by any means, but just don't be too judgmental early.
Kevin Kerstein was on earlier in this hour with me, and he wanted me to tell you that there is no pressure. It's going to be 12-horse fields in every race on opening night Wednesday at Turfway.
Yeah, I saw he tweeted something out, and I put out a little GIF on Twitter from the airplane movie when the guy's just sweating bullets. So there's another thing, fans. If you don't see me, what's the commercial? I've never let them see you sweat. I'm the complete opposite. If you don't see me sweating, that's when you got to go, what's going on with the big man?
Talking with Tony Calo here on the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network. Tony, the brand new announcer at Turfway Park. And Tony, I am familiar with that booth. I grew up wanting to be a track announcer, and before I got into radio, Mike Battaglia was kind enough to let me come to Turfway, set me up with an area where I could practice calling races into a tape recorder. And then I remember one night Mike had to leave early, and he told me a couple days before, hey, would you like to call the last race? I have to skip out of here early. And I was so excited, but I was also so nervous. I can remember standing in the booth you just described and putting my binoculars on the gate. And Tony, I was shaking like a leaf. I was so nervous that my binoculars were going up and down. And if it wasn't for the camera guy in the booth next to me that said, here we go, I wouldn't have known the last horse stepped into the gate. Thankfully, the one gray horse in the race broke on top, and I was able to relax just a little bit. But to this day, I still don't think I went through the entire field. That's how nervous I was having to do it for the first time.
Yeah, last season when I got to fill in for the 5 days, I found myself going up back to the front a little bit more frequently than I've done throughout my career. And sometimes you just have to do what you have to do to get through it. I'll never forget when Chip took me up there last year on that Wednesday, and I go, "This is the booth? Are you kidding me, Chip?" Well, you can step out to this balcony. Yeah, thanks a lot, pal. But I thought I did a decent enough job, and obviously I must have did something right that they're bringing me back. I'm super excited. I've been studying hard for a few days. I'm already on to Thursday, and just do the best I can. Call on all my ability. I've been practicing at this for a lot of years, and I've been bucking the odds. I dropped out of college in '92 and told everyone I was going to become a horse race announcer, and lost a few friends, had some family members question me, and here I am. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, and it was 5 years after that time that you made that statement that you were calling races. It began in 1997 at Arapahoe Park in Colorado. But I was telling the story in the previous segment that my love of racing, Tony, began with a trip to Saratoga with my buddies watching Easy Goer win the Travers Stakes. And for you, I was reading an article. I guess the horse that got you hooked was a horse named Golden Act. Is that correct?
Yeah, look at you, huh? Props to you for doing your homework. My father, my dad died when I was 18 years of age. He never really got to see me call a horse race. At least a real horse race. I called plenty with my Matchbox cars and my Hot Wheels in the formal living room over the Oriental rug. But he introduced me to horse racing. I fell in love with it when I was very young. Affirmed in Alydar, obviously, is what really got me going. But it was a trip to Bay Meadows in 1978 with a horse called Golden Act. My dad told me, "Hey, you can have $2 to win on a horse. I think the 3 or the 9 is either's going to win." The 3 was gray. I wasn't into grays. The 9 reminded me of Affirmed. His name was Golden Act, and I've been hooked ever since.
Incredible. It's such a great story. When you think back on your career, Tony, and some of the moments you've been part of in the booth, what are some of the moments that are always going to stand out to you?
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of them. That's a very tough question. I can't say really anything stands out to me. Obviously, the first race call ever at the Solano County Fair in 1994. The announcer, Craig O.K. Ingram, I always got to give Craig props. He's the first one that ever put me on the mic. It was an 870-yard Appaloosa race, and I got to call that at the Solano County Fair on closing day. I happened to be working part of the video department. This was back before wireless cameras. I was the grip, following around the cameraman down that did the winner circle and paddock shots, and was part of setup and tear down, and they let me Craig let me call a couple of races that day. I was only supposed to call the opener, but the video department, somehow the equipment failed, so there was never going to be any proof that I had ever called a race except for the 15 people on track. So Michael Rona was in attendance. He was so proud of me. Michael was one of my mentors. Michael and Paul Allen, Vic Stauffer also helped me get where I am today. So Michael was in attendance. I called the opener. He was so proud of me. "Mate, you've done great. Great job, mate." And next thing you know, he's feeding me a couple Bloody Marys. And next thing you know, they telling me, "Hey, you got to get back up there and do it again." And then I got to call an 870-yard quarter horse race. So those memories stand out. A lot of memories. A lot of nice horses. I got to call Charismatic in my very first El Camino Real Derby at Bay Meadows. He finished second that day to a John Sheriff's horse named Clico, but Charismatic, of course, went on to become very famous. I was very fortunate to call Lost in the Fog's debut run, and that horse will always have a special place in my heart. I got to call Pepper's Pride in New Mexico. Just the very first San Francisco Mile I ever called at Golden Gate Fields in 1999. Tuzla won for Julio Canani, and it was so reminiscent of a race back when I was a kid, the 1980 San Francisco Mile, which I believe was won by Don Alberto, if memory serves correct. But I'll never forget that race as a kid. There was like 10 of them across the track across the course at the 8th pole. And here I am years later getting to call races at my hometown track, Bay Meadows and Golden Gate Fields in 99. The San Francisco Mile was so reminiscent of the 80 that I remembered as a kid. They were you talk about binoculars shaking up and down. That was my moment. There was like 8 or 9 of them at the 8th pole across the course, and Tousley emerged and prevailed. And I remember when I got done with that race, I was like, wow, I was so happy. I was so proud of myself. And I was like, wow, that was like 1980 all over again. But I was up in the booth. It was a special moment.
What eventually brought you from the West Coast to Finger Lakes?
I needed a job, Mike. I was floating around the New Mexico circuit. I was calling it a very small racetrack called Sunray Park in Farmington, New Mexico. I was filling in at Albuquerque I had filled in at Albuquerque in 2006. The late great Luke Kreitboss had helped me try to get my career back in order. So I got in at New Mexico. Eric Allwin let me fill in for him in New Mexico at the Downs at Albuquerque. Ended up landing Sunray thereafter. And Luke let me fill in at Turf Paradise when he would venture to Churchill. So I was kind of had a little 6-month, 7-month gig I was doing back and forth between Turf Paradise filling in and a couple of tracks in New Mexico. I was, the announcer at Sunray, and at the Downs at Albuquerque, I was doing some clocking. I was the identifier at the quarter pole, and I was the paddock commentator. And all of a sudden, Finger Lakes became available. There was a chart caller at Turf Paradise, Hurley. I can't think of Hurley's first name right now. My bad. But he was from the Canandaigua area where Finger Lakes is in Farmington, New York. And he told me, hey, this would be a good gig for you. Ross is getting a little up there in years, and keep an eye on this one. They run a lot of dates, and you can get out of there in the winter. It'll be perfect. Well, then unfortunately, poor Ross passed away in 2008, and Hurley told me, hey, there's the Finger Lakes gig. So I applied, and I was one of like 3 or 4 that got interviewed, and they offered 401k and health insurance and unemployment in the winter and 163 racing days. And I'm like, hey, I'm back, baby. And went to Finger Lakes hoping it would land me at NYRA. Obviously everybody wants to get to the big leagues. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to get to New York. I'll get to Finger Lakes. NYRA will notice me, and maybe they'll bring me in some capacity. And 15 years later, I'm still at Finger Lakes, and I'm like, well, is anybody noticing me? Does anybody remember who Tony Calo is anymore? And luckily, this has all worked out for me. I'm so happy, and I've been telling my friends for 2-3 years, if you want to stick in horse racing, you want to be somebody in horse racing, you got to get to Kentucky. And I am just so happy that Churchill Downs has given me this opportunity.
Well, Tony, we're excited to hear you on the microphone beginning on Wednesday. I know that you're going to kill it, and it's going to be fantastic. I want to wish you all the best and really, really appreciate the conversation here this morning. Good luck with this Turfway meet, and I'm sure we'll be talking again soon.
Yes, thank you very much. Like I said, fans, just have a little patience. Give the big man just a little bit of time to get in there. And if I kill it opening night, don't hold it against me if I fumble on day 2.
Yeah, don't set the bar too high, Tony.
Yeah, I've already got a couple little calls I'm ready to unleash, but you're right. I just got to take it one race at a time and in stride. And I have
a minute or two before I have to get to the break. Do you script anything when you prepare to call races?
Anything I do to prepare to call races? Obviously, I watch a tremendous amount of replays. I'm listening to other announcers for pronunciations. I'm trying to go in the back of my head, like what I'm anticipating. Being a fan first as a handicapper, I'm always trying to get the pace scenario down, trying to write down some colors. That's something I'll be implementing probably Tuesday night as I get a little closer, just making sure I have everything kind of covered. When you get up there in the booth, everything changes. It's funny when you're a fan, you're like, gosh, does he even know how to read anymore? It's amazing how you can just mistake one letter in a name, and just try to be prepared to the best of your abilities. That's all.
Yeah. Do you ever script a line, and a phrase that you want to use? Is that ever in the back of your mind where you have that scripted if something's going to happen?
Without a doubt. Last year when I got to call Turfway on the first night, Verstappen, and I didn't know who Verstappen, however you said. I didn't know who Max was, and I knew all of a sudden I started Googling him, and he drove for the Red Bull team, so I delivered the Verstappen, Red Bull gives you wings, and so yeah, I do have a couple of calls pre-scripted. In fact, I've got one already pre-scripted for Wednesday night. Hopefully it comes into fruition.
Yeah, well, we'll be listening. It's going to be outstanding. Tony, really appreciate it. All the best with Turfway Park, my friend. Thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me on, Mike.
All right, Tony Calo here on HRN. Fun visit there, and really looking forward to him calling those races in Northern Kentucky. When I come back, I'll take a look at a couple historical dates in racing history and tell you what's ahead in a busy third hour of the program. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Woodford Feed, where tradition merges with technology. Family owned since 1940 and providing exceptional customer service, Woodford Feed specializes in the highest quality feed, using only the finest ingredients to ensure optimal nutrition for your horses. In addition, Woodford Feed can help with all your farm needs, including field seed, fertilizer, and weed control. So whether your horse is sprinting around the racetrack or has a foal by her side, count on Woodford Feed to provide the quality nutrition necessary to perform at the highest level. Woodford Feed for Sales, Kentucky.
People do some pretty cool things in their 40s and 50s. Why should saving for retirement be any different? I mean, they go back to college, learn new instruments, start skateboarding. Whoa! Okay, maybe that one's not for everybody, but saving for retirement is. With aceyourretirement.org, you can get on track with your retirement savings no matter your age. Just have a 3-minute chat with Avo, the friendly digital retirement coach from AARP. You'll get personalized recommendations based on your input that are easy to understand and work with your lifestyle. It's quick, easy, and free. Plus, it's sponsored by AARP, so you know they got your back.
Woo-hoo. Gnarly move, Dad.
Thanks, sweetie.
So wherever you are in your retirement savings journey, head to aceyourretirement.org and start chatting with Avo today. That's aceyourretirement.org. A message from AARP and the Ad Council.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting. A teenager. Learning the lingo.
Today I'm going to help parents translate teen slang. Now, when a teen says something is on fleek, it's exactly like saying, that's rad. It simply means that something is awesome or cool. Another one is totes. It's exactly like saying totally, just shorter. As in, I totes love going to the mall with Becca. Another word you might hear is jelly. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will think you're, rad just the same. To learn more, visit adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Want to get the latest HRRN content directly on your computer or mobile device? Then subscribe to our podcast using the Podbean app or Apple Podcasts. Just go to hrrn.podbean.com on your computer and click follow, or download the Podbean app and search HRRN. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts and listen to our latest episodes anytime. Don't miss a thing. Subscribe to our podcasts today. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, I was asking you which winter meet you're most excited for, Fairgrounds, Gulfstream, Santa Anita, or other, and Gulfstream continuing to lead the way with 41% of the vote, but getting more responses in the other category. King says for him it's going to be Aqueduct. Turfway getting a lot of respect in here as well. Several people saying Turfway. Oaklawn also getting a lot of play, as you might expect in that poll question. You can keep those coming all the way up until 11 a.m. Eastern, and I'll try to update them again coming up in hour number 3. Time now to take a look at a couple dates in racing history as they apply to this weekend in thoroughbred racing. Today, November 25th, 1997, the anniversary of officials at Churchill Downs and the Maryland Jockey Club announcing a brand new method for drawing post positions for the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes. The traditional blind draw would be held to establish a selection order, and then if you recall, a horse's owner and trainer or the authorized agent would choose the preferred post position among those that were still available. I'm going to ask Dale and Tim in the final segment of today's show if they think that that's something that racing should look at bringing back. November 26th, tomorrow, the anniversary of American Airlines transporting 6 horses from Shannon Airport in Ireland to Newark, New Jersey, completing the first transatlantic flight for thoroughbreds. That happened November 26th, 1946. The plane actually arrived in the U.S. on November 27th. November 26, 1992 is when Sandy Hawley became the 9th North American rider to win 6,000 races. His record victory came aboard Summer Commander in the second race at Greenwood Racecourse. And tomorrow also the anniversary of Seabiscuit, Laura Hillenbrand's best-selling book about the rags to riches story of the 1930s thoroughbred. That was when that all occurred as well. Being named the William Hill Sportsbook of the Year. That was November 26, 2001. Those are racing dates as they apply to this weekend. Plenty more to come. Hour 3 is coming up next. Going to get a chance to kick it off with the TwinSpires Triple Play. James Scully will be with me to give you 3 races you can keep an eye on. Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20, and at 10:30, Dale Roman's Tim Wilkin with this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. If your local station is leaving us, continue listening to the third hour of the program on SiriusXM and streaming at horseracingradio.net. Hour 3 of the Equine Forum is coming up next, right after this 10-second pause for station identification. This is the Horse Racing Radio Network, where racing comes to talk.
This is HRRN, horse racing's voice.
Forever Unbridled on the outside. Caramba down at the rail. It's Forever Unbridled by a nostril. Caramba coming back again on the inside. It's going to be tight as they come down for the finish in the Cumley. And it is Forever Unbridled. Looked like she got it by a couple of noses.
Suddenly the whole picture changes. Here's Ring Weekend on the outside. Ring Weekend, Vijack. Ring Weekend and Vijack gonna hit it together. Close, looked like Ring Weekend and Dryden Van Dyke won it.
Welcome to the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires.
2 lengths to bind, and this leader is binding more. Rachel Alexandra and Calvin Burrell, and they have now slipped the field and gone clear, and it is Rachel Alexandra. How impressive! Rachel Alexandra wins, and it's a second golden rod for winning jockey Calvin Burrell. Then the sky has no limit, who's looking for a seam, and he's running out of time because Super Saver has kicked again, and Super Saver has gone clear now by 5 lengths as they race inside the final 16. Super Saver is out in front for Calvin Burrell, giving chase. Williams Kitten for the Kentucky Jockey Club goes to Super Saver, a 3rd win in the race for Calvin Burrell.
Now here's Mike Penna.
Welcome back. Hour number 3 of the Equine Forum, barreling toward the finish line. Still one more hour to go and plenty of content coming your way, including the TwinSpires Triple Play with James Scully. He'll kick it off for you momentarily. Kurt Becker's Stroll Through Racing History at 10:20. And at 10:30, I Ask, They Answer with Dale and Tim. They will be here to talk about some of the hottest topics in the sport today. And one of the things I'm going to ask them about is something you just heard in the open. You heard Super Saver. You heard Rachel Alexandra. The Kentucky Jockey Club and the Goldenrod are taking place at Churchill today. It is part of their Stars of Tomorrow 2 program. The Kentucky Jockey Club has produced 2 winners of the Kentucky Derby, Real Quiet and Super Saver, both of those horses coming out of that race in their juvenile campaigns. The Goldenrod also has 2 winners of the Kentucky Oaks with Silver Bullet Day and Rachel Alexandra. So I'm going to ask Dale and Tim, which of those races, if it's going to happen next year, is most likely to make it number 3 in their respective divisions? Are we going to see the Oaks or the Derby winner running on that card at Churchill later today? Great racing. Fantastic card at Churchill Downs. And I know that's where James Scully has his eye this week as we get set for this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. James, good morning, my friend.
Good morning, Mike. Yes, it's it's closing weekend at Churchill. Got a big Stars of Tomorrow program. That Kentucky Jockey Club producing 2 winners of the Kentucky Derby since 1984. I'll go back to that point because that was the first running of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. There's been 2 Breeders' Cup Juveniles win the Derby, and my colleague Vance Hansen wrote a piece, and it showed that every stakes race at a mile or longer for 2-year-olds since 1984. no mile or longer stake race has produced more than 2 winners of the Derby. So that Jockey Club, it's right there with the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. I believe it's there with race like the Remsen has 2 Derby winners in that period. The American Pharaoh at Santa Anita, I believe, and there's at least a couple more as well. One race that has not produced a Kentucky Derby winner, surprisingly to me, is the Breeders' Futurity at Keeneland. For whatever reason, no horse in the last 40 years has been able to, or 39 years, has been able to, from that race, win the Derby.
Yeah, really interesting because it's always such a good race. Do you think we could be seeing the Derby winner racing at Churchill Downs today?
Unless if he's in a maiden or allowance race, potentially, but not in the Kentucky Jockey Club. I'm a little bit dubious of that group. There's some nice, there could be a horse that breaks through in that race, and I've got a pick in there, and it's not one with stakes experience. So we'll see how he does and how he goes moving forward. But I've been a little underwhelmed by the ones that would have stakes experience in that field.
The other thing I've been talking about throughout the morning is the Pool 2 of the Kentucky Derby Future Wager, which is taking place. Folks can go to TwinSpires to place their bets on a horse they feel can win the Kentucky Derby next year. And I always say when you're betting these futures, James, you have to look for value because it's a high risk. It can be a high reward proposition. But as you just pointed out, if the Derby winner is running in a maiden race or an allowance race today, there's a good chance they're not included in the body and the individual betting choices in that wager later today. So you're going to have to get stuck taking the all others category because they're going to be lumped into there, and that's not going to offer any value at all.
Well, I look at even that Pool 1 that was on Breeders' Cup week. There were 8 Cox horses in there, and most of them were maiden or allowance winners. So I do think that there is some value. If the Derby winner doesn't come from the all-weathers category, I think everybody's all aware of all these juvenile stakes horses, but there's a chance to, perhaps you see a maiden or allowance horse, a 2-year-old you like. There were a few Cox horses I bet the first time around, just made a small wager on them. But I knew that, they were all bred to go 2 turns in my eyes and, were eligible to keep improving.
Okay, let's dive into the 3 races you have selected for this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. And again, we will encourage all of our listeners to bet these 3 races any way they like. Just make sure they're doing it with TwinSpires. The 8th at Churchill is your first one. We're going to go in post-position order. So after that race, we'll go to the 8th race at the Fairgrounds, and then we'll wrap it up right back at Churchill Downs with the race 11, which is the Kentucky Jockey Club. So let's start with that 8th at Churchill, 1 1/16 on the main track. It's a maiden special event. You said you had one you liked in here. Who is it?
Yes, and this is a great this is a horse that meets, people ask me all the time, what I look for or stuff, but a lot of times I'm looking for negatives. And one of my biggest pet peeves, negatives, is horses that show up for their debut with back-to-back gate works. There's horses just won't work back-to-back gate works in front of their first start unless there's some kind of issue with the gate where they need extra practice. And number 1, Stop the Press, showed up with get back. Not only did he show up with back-to-back gate works, Mike, but he had worked 4 of his last 5 works from the starting gate before he showed up at Keeneland on October 26th. Now, he had been impressive in those moves and in all of his workouts in New York up to that point. He had multiple bullet workouts, lots of fast moves. The word was obviously out on him because he was bet down to favoritism. And I thought the winner that day, Rocketeer, who was the second choice, unfortunately, he hasn't worked back for Cox. He was one of the horses I bet in Pool 1 of the future wager because I really liked him that day. He's by Curlin. I think he was a really nice maiden winner at Keeneland. Stop the Press. It was totally unsurprising to me with all those gate works. He broke out of the gate completely, not knowing what was going on. He got bumped around. He broke a step slow. He got bumped around repeatedly on both sides. And you could see as he dropped back in the field that he was clearly frustrated, was discombobulated, and just unhappy. And he finally, got it together a little bit in the latter stages and wound up splitting the 11-horse field essentially in 6 that day. But that, to me, is just a learning experience. That's the perfect actual tutorial for a horse that, needs all these gate works before their debut. They get that experience. They come back next time. They break much better. And, Sean McGahee, he's a Hall of Famer, but he's never been known for saddling first-time starters. Doesn't mind, giving these horses an opportunity to learn what it's all about at first asking. And, Brian Hernandez was up last time, but we have a situation here where Stop the Press was favored in 11-horse field last time. He's 10-1 on the morning line. A lot of people are going to look at that effort and be discouraged. But Tyler Gaffalione and his people, he's the leading rider at Churchill Downs, they took the mount on this colt. And I believe the reason they took the mount on this colt is because they know he's talented. And, they paid $1.5 million for him. He had been training extremely well, and he got fed at first asking. So I'm saying draw a line through that effort. You have a favorite in this race, Track Phantom, who had everything on his own way last time and just came up short. That this time around, he won't be out there clear and easy like he was last time. I think there's more pace in there. I look for Stop the Press to get out of the gate better, be up in striking range early, and run a big race late and prove best in race 8 to maiden special weight at Churchill Downs.
You mentioned the $1.5 million purchase price for Stop the Press. These are the same connections that brought us Flightline with Summerwind Equine, the breeder, West Point Thoroughbreds, Woodford Racing. You think these guys know what they're doing?
Yeah, I do. I do, Mike. And I'm not 100% convinced he's going to be 10-1. People are going to look at the Gaffalione, and there's going to be some people who were betting him last time are probably going to come back and bet him and see the exact same thing I saw. But one thing's for certain, it doesn't look like he's going to be favored in this 12-horse field. He's going to offer some value, and I look for a big performance from him today.
All right, Stop the Press, 10-1 on the morning line, number 1 in race 8 at Churchill, the first leg of the TwinSpires Triple play for James Scully. James, let's move on to the fairgrounds. Again, we're taking these in post-position order. Race 8 at Churchill Downs is set to go at 4:18 Eastern. Race 8 at the fairgrounds goes at 5:13 Eastern time, 4:13 locally in New Orleans. This is the Panzeretta $100,000 stake, 5.5 furlongs on the turf. How'd you see it?
I saw it where you're going to have a pretty solid pace in there. I expect pretty at least contested. You have number 8 Going Good is coming off a race at Keeneland where she broke okay that day, but just basically they were out there winging it through 20 and change, 44 and change. She got a little bit shuffled back a little bit. She was last between calls going in the far turn, and I love the way she finished up with gusto that day. She actually took an inside trip where it was a little bit of tight quarters. She was on a cut of ground where they'd brought the rails in that day that looked, I don't know if it was as favorable. And I just thought the top 2 finishers got a better flow. They were just late runners. All that magic came right back and finished a good third in a stake race at Aqueduct. And the runner-up's a nice filly as well. That was a deep allowance race. That was a good third. And basically, this filly is, got a freshening from Brad Cox. She came back with a second to a wire-to-wire winner, came back with a good closing third last time. Now she goes to Fairgrounds. I think she's going to move forward off that effort. I think she's going to get the right setup. And she's in an 11-horse field that has she's the only winner over the course in the field. In fact, she's run well in all 3 of her starts on the Fairgrounds turf. I think Going Good is poised for a big effort. And, she's 4-1 on the morning line. I don't think she's going to be favored. And it's just a really big field sizes at Fairgrounds. Have opportunity for some if you can find a single in any kind of pick 3, pick 4 kind of wager, might be able to get a price around them as well. So I like Going Good in the Panzeretta today at Fairgrounds.
Yeah, pretty good value and pretty consistent mare too. The 5-year-old mare, 21 starts, has been on the board in 16 of those 21, so always seems to run her race. All right, James, the final race you have chosen, we'll go back to Churchill Downs. It is race number 11. This is the big one, if you will. It is the Grade 2 Kentucky Jockey Club, 1 1/16 on the main track for the 2-year-old boys. Who wins this one?
I like a closer in here. I'm going to take a little bit of an upset. I like number 2, Honor Marie. And I'm just going to start off right away with the favorite in here, Risk It. I think he's going to get bad. I did not like his effort. You know, in his wire-to-wire, his maiden debut performance, he looked apart. He ran a really solid time, and he was 2 lengths clear at the first call, having everything his own way. He didn't get that set up in the Iroquois, and let me just say, it looked like he was out of gas to me at the top of the stretch. He held on for second. You know, you had a horse got DQ'd in the stretch that day that was running sideways. Only West Saratoga was the one that had any finishing, I thought, really, that day. And I didn't like that effort. I'm not keen on him stretching out the 2 turns at Churchill Downs off of it. And while, you know, he still potentially might, you know, like be looking to go wire to wire, I do think Awesome Road is going to show speed from the inside. Stretch ride will be prominent, and 1 Red Cent. I think the race is going to set up for a progressing colt who's going to finish up strongly, and I'm going with number 2, Anna Marie. And the thing with Anna Marie is that this colt has always been bred for 2 turns. His dam never raced in a sprint. She ran all her races, ran at long distances, won at 9 furlongs. She's a sister to a St. Ledger winner, at a Group 1 winner at 1 mile and 13/16 or whatever, 1 mile and 3/4. And his name was Rule of Law. You know, couldn't even get going until he got to 1 mile of a race. So this is all 2-turn stamina with this Honor Code colt in his breeding. He won at first asking by a head at 6 furlongs. Last time out in the slot, Mike, that winner of that race, Otto the Conqueror, was on the front end leading wire to wire with Tyler Gaffleone. That is a Street Sense colt. They got a 96 speed rating that day. He's won 2 in a row. Looks very promising. That was a nice horse, nice field. And Anna Marie really finished well for second. I mean, basically had no chance, turning for home, 6 wide, rallying from off the pace. But I loved his late run. He was about 5 lengths clear of third. And I look for him to improve upon that effort, going 2 turns, finish up with even more gusto. His Brisnet speed numbers and pace numbers are very encouraging, and I look for a big effort today with Rafael Bejarano.
As we started our conversation here, James, for this segment, you mentioned the fact that you didn't feel like the winner of the Kentucky Derby was going to be in or is in the Kentucky Jockey Club later today, but you said maybe one of the races on the undercard. Do you feel then as if, number 1, Stop the Press, your top pick in race number 8 at Churchill, is a better Derby prospect going forward than the more accomplished Anna Marie, who's running in the Kentucky Jockey Club?
Well, you know, yeah, I mean, you know, I'd say I'm sort of splitting the hairs with that too, because I'm expecting them both to run really big races. They're both going 1 mile and a 16th distance, you know, 2 turns for the first time. So I'm looking for them essentially both to move forward. I do think Stop the Press, you know, he's got he's shown this talent. I remember him getting bet in that race. I mean, people have seen him in the flesh and believe that he's like really talented, I think. And, you know, he still has to prove it, though, whereas Anna Marie has shown more in 2 starts. So I feel good going forward with both of them. It's just so early in the process that it's really about how much they move forward from this point on over the next couple months. To me, that's always the most important developmental period. I do want to mention at TwinSpires today and tomorrow, we've got some great promotions for Churchill Downs. You know, we've got some things for fairgrounds. And this is a real exciting time of the year because we always do a bunch of promos for when meets open. And we've got Turfway, Oaklawn, Gulfstreams Championship Meet, and Santa Anita coming in the coming weeks. So we'll have lots of promos, offers, be giving away lots of free money. So make sure you go to TwinSpires.com, check out our offers, and opt in. And thanks so much for having me on, Mike. Always love talking the horses. And, yeah, you know, this is really exciting time for the Derby because, to me, once you get past the Breeders' Cup and past, like, you know, to Thanksgiving weekend, heck, this is the time of year to start your focus towards that first Saturday in May.
Yeah, 161 days away from the 150th Run for the Roses. It's going to be spectacular on that first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs. And, James, it's never too early to get Derby fever. Fun to talk 2-year-olds with you here this morning. Let's just recap very quickly your TwinSpires Triple play for this morning. Churchill Downs, race 8, you'll go with number 1, Stop the Press, at odds of 10-1. Fairgrounds, race 8, the Panzeretta, you'll take number 8, Going Good, at 4-1. And Churchill, race 11, number 2, Honor Marie, at odds of 8-1.
That's correct. And
sounds good to me, buddy. That sounds like one hell of a trifecta.
Let's get after it. Hey, I wish you the best of luck this weekend, Mike, and everybody listening.
Yep, you too, buddy. Appreciate it. James Scully with this week's TwinSpires Triple Play. Coming up next, Kurt Becker will take you on his weekly Stroll Through Racing History. It's a fantastic story about Raise a Native. Stay tuned for this. You won't want to miss it. Coming up at 10:30 Eastern, I Ask, They Answer with Dale Romans and Tim Wilkin. Stay with me. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race the TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Churchill Downs 21-day fall meet runs now through November 26th with racing Wednesday through Sunday with daily first posts at 1 p.m. with 15 stakes, including the Grade 2 Clark on Friday, November 24th, and the Road to the Kentucky Derby prep season continuing October 29th with the Street Sense Stakes and November 25th with the Kentucky Jockey Club. Plus, the Stars of Tomorrow featuring all 2-year-old races on October 29th and November 25th. All purses powered by the Kentucky Thoroughbred Development Fund. For tickets and more information, visit churchilldowns.com.
It's time now to shine the spotlight on the Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week.
Without being asked to run, Nisos by 3, Nisos by 4, Nisos by 5, Nisos in the Bob Hope wins with style. Looking good.
That's TDN Rising Star Nisos, the son of Darley Stallion Nyquist, remaining undefeated in 2 starts with that dominating 8-length win in the Grade 3 Bob Hope at Del Mar, earning a 97 Beyer speed figure, a victory most deserving of being your Darley Taking the Reins Performer of the Week. Darley Stallion Nyquist, Nisos, became Nyquist's 14th graded stakes juvenile in North America from his first 4 crops. No stallion has ever had more. Better still, his 2024 juveniles are his best bred yet. Learn more about Nyquist and all the Darley Stallions by visiting darleyamerica.com.
You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Hello, I'm Kurt Becker. Thanks for joining me as I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. He made 4 career starts and earned $45,000, and he never raced beyond his 2-year-old season. Yet he became one of the most influential stallions in American history. His name was Raise a Native. Foaled on April 18, 1961 at Bosque Bonita Farm, the site of what is today Lane's End Farm in Versailles, Kentucky, Raise a Native was a strapping chestnut colt with a white star on his forehead. His sire was 1953 Horse of the Year Native Dancer, while his dam was 3-time stakes winner Raise You, a filly which had been bred by the historic Country Life Farm of the Pons family in Maryland. Bred by Happy Hill Farm of Mr. and Mrs. Courtwright Wetherill, Raise a Native sold at Keeneland as a weanling in October of 1961 for a then record price of $22,000. The purchaser was Mrs. Ellsworth Augustus, who would then sell him as a yearling for $39,000. The man who purchased Raise a Native as a yearling was Louis Wolfson, a former University of Georgia football player who had gotten into the horse business just 4 years earlier. The board chairman of Merritt, Chapman & Scott, a marine construction and salvage firm, Wolfson would ask future Hall of Fame trainer Burley Park to end a 10-year retirement to train the colt, and Park would agree. Employees at Wolfson's Harborview Farm would later remember Raise a Native as a lazy colt, which feared the starting gate when first put into training. He seemed to lag about 2 weeks behind his stablemates in terms of his progress. But the difference came when his rider was given a whip, and it was said that just a light flick of the whip sent Ray's a Native from 10 lengths behind his workmates to 6 lengths in front. Sent to Hialeah Park in Miami soon thereafter, Ray's a Native displayed 2 traits which concerned his trainer. One was that he nearly threw his exercise rider into the trees each morning as he headed to the track. The other was that he continued to show a reluctance to enter the starting gate during schooling hours, one day going so far as to lay down on the track behind the gate just to make his point. But Park worked with the colt and somehow got him to overcome both quirks. In an era when Hialeah would offer maiden races at 3 furlongs in February for 2-year-olds, Ray's a Native made his career debut at the South Florida track on February 28, 1963, under future Hall of Fame jockey John Rotz. The big colt won with ease, covering the 3/8 of a mile in 33 2/5 seconds and defeating 13 rivals at even money to win by a margin of 6 lengths. Ray's a Native would head next to New York, and his sparkling reputation would travel with him. His second start was to Comet Aqueduct in late April, but a spectacular 5-furlong work in 59 seconds flat at Belmont Park scared virtually everyone else away from the entry box. Ray's a Native's second career start would finally come at Aqueduct on May 4th, 1963, and he turned lots of heads in the paddock prior to going to the track. There were observers who said he looked big enough and strong enough to be a 3-year-old. And after he won by 8 lengths as the 1-2 favorite and broke the track record for 5 furlongs in 57 4/5 seconds, sports writer Pat Lynch called Ray's a Native one of the fastest juveniles he had seen in New York in a decade. 4 weeks later, on May 31st, Ray's a Native won his stakes debut, capturing the juvenile stakes at Aqueduct and equaling his own track record at 5 furlongs. And on July 17th, he ran his mark to a perfect 4 for 4 with a win in the Great American Stakes at Aqueduct, getting 5.5 furlongs in track record time of 1 minute 2 3/5 seconds and missing the world record by just 1/5 of a second. He had run an opening quarter that day in 21 3 and an opening half mile in 44 1. But on August 2nd, during a 6-furlong workout at Monmouth Park in preparation for the Sapling Stakes, Ray's a Native took an awkward step and sustained an injury to a tendon. He would not race the rest of the year and, in fact, would never race again. A panel of 155 sports writers and broadcasters in the annual Turf and Sport Digest poll would name Ray's a Native champion 2-year-old male for 1963, despite his being retired before any of the major East Coast races for juveniles had been run. Hurry to Market, winner of the Garden State Stakes, would be named champion in balloting by both Thoroughbred Racing Associations and Triangle Publications. Retiring to stud at Spendthrift Farm in Lexington, Kentucky, where he would spend his entire stallion career, Ray's a Native had sired 74 stakes winners by the time of his death at age 27 in July of 1988. He would sire world record-priced yearlings on 4 occasions at the Keeneland Summer Sales, and he would sire the sale topper at Keeneland July 5 times overall. All told, some 23 Kentucky Derby winners have been direct male line descendants of Ray's a Native, including 2023 winner Mage. In 1978, Ray's a Native's son Alidar and his grandson Affirmed battled each other throughout the Triple Crown. Other direct male line descendants of Ray's a Native include leading sires Unbridled, Smart Strike, and Curlin, all through his son Mr. Prospector, as well as Kentucky Derby winning filly Genuine Risk, Dual Classic winner Ali Sheba, Belmont winner Easy Goer, and Horse of the Year Zenyatta. Ray's a Native has been gone for 35 years, but his legacy lives on as one of the most influential sires of the modern era. Please join me again next week when I take another stroll through racing history presented by Keeneland. For HRRN, I'm Kurt Becker.
And once again, my thanks to Kurt and to Keeneland for making those segments possible each and every week. If you have missed any of Kurt's Stroll Through Racing History segments, all you have to do is head back over to our website, horseracingradio.net. You can check out the special podcast page dedicated to those stories and listen to every single one. There have been some amazing ones. Go back and listen at horseracingradio.net. When I come back, Dale Romans, Tim Wilkin, they will be here. It is this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer. This is the Equine Forum, presented by TwinSpires on HRRN.
Race to TwinSpires, where you can unlock a $25 risk-free bet. Just use the code HRRN25 when you sign up. And if your first bet doesn't win, TwinSpires will refund your account up to $25. Wagering on the app is fast with free past performances, insider picks, and power plays every day you wager. TwinSpires. Download the app today to earn your $25 risk-free bet. Void where prohibited. For terms and conditions, visit TwinSpires.com. Must be 18 or older, 21 and older where applicable. For help with a gambling problem, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
There are plenty of thrills at Gulfstream Park with live thoroughbred action Friday through Sunday and simulcasting 7 days a week. Join us on track for weekend stakes races and make plans for opening day of the championship meet on Friday, December 1st. Dine trackside in 10 Palms with an elevated view of the track or grab a cool cocktail in the Carousel Club. For reservations, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
The Maryland thoroughbred industry. For over 200 years, the innovative leader. Maryland was the first to have organized racing in North America and the first to establish a state breeders association. Maryland created the first thoroughbred yearling show, the first state magazine, the first state breeder incentive development program, the first international race to feature horses from 4 continents, and the first $1 million one-day stallion stakes event. The Maryland thoroughbred industry is the innovative leader.
DeMarchelier offers breeders a rare opportunity as the only son of Dubawi standing in Kentucky. Dubawi, one of the world's most celebrated stallions, is now a sire of sires. His top sons at stud are making a name for themselves across the globe. With a picture-perfect pedigree, this son of Dubawi brings one of the world's most potent bloodlines to America. DeMarchelier, standing at Claiborne Farm.
This is I Ask, They Answer on the Equine Forum on HRRN.
Super Saver has kicked again, and Super Saver has gone clear now by 5 lengths as they race inside the final 16. Super Saver is out in front for Calvin Burrell, giving chase. Williams Kitten, but the Kentucky Jockey Club goes to Super Saver, a 3rd win in the race for Calvin Burrell. 2 lengths to find, and this leader is finding more. Rachel Alexandra and Calvin Burrell, and they have now slipped the field and gone clear, and it is Rachel Alexandra. How impressive! Rachel Alexandra wins, and it's a 2nd golden rod for winning jockey Calvin Burrell.
Super Saver and Rachel, the most recent horses to use the Kentucky Jockey Club and Goldenrod as stepping stones to victories in the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks the following season. Mark Johnson had the call. Which of this year's renewals is more likely to provide another winner in their respective divisions when racing returns to Churchill Downs in early May? Plus, which winter race meet are Dale and Tim most looking forward to? And would you take 15-1 or less on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner in the Kentucky Derby Futures? Those topics and much, much more are straight ahead on this week's edition of I Ask, They Answer with trainer Dale Romans and turf writer Tim Wilkin, and all presented by the University of Louisville Equine Industry Program in the College of Business. And it all starts just 30 seconds from right now.
Learn the business of horses in the world's only accredited equine business program, the University of Louisville Equine Business Program. The University of Louisville has a legacy of excellence educating and developing industry leaders for over 35 years. Classes are taught by industry experts in state-of-the-art facilities located in the heartland of America's equine industry. The University of Louisville Equine Business Program. When it comes to horses, we mean business. For more information, visit business.louisville.edu/equine.
Okay, several topics to get to with Dale and Tim, but guys, we're going to begin this week's show a bit differently as we welcome back our good friend Michael Riley, whose Aqueduct All-Stars just finished that competition, the Showdown 2, competing against Dale and Tim. Dale won the competition going away, but Michael finished second and gave Dale everything he wanted. He made it very difficult on Dale in the early going before Dale was able to pull away at the end. Michael, welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, and congratulations to Dale. It was I looked at his stable up and down, and from the beginning I knew I was up against it. But I tell you, he gave me everything he had. But I think if he put $2 across the board on all my picks, I might have actually won on the ROI, but I haven't had a chance to do that yet. Anyway, congratulations, Dale. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Michael. Good effort. You know what Apollo Creed told Rocky at the end of the first movie? Don't want no rematch. I was impressed with your horses.
Yeah, and again, I also want to say it was just a pleasure. I ran into Dale down at Charlestown on that classic night, and kind of was the highlight of the whole season for me was meeting him in person. I look forward to bumping into him again, probably up at Saratoga next summer.
Yeah, that was a good night. That's a fun little place we were at.
Indeed. And then one last thing. I mean, I feel kind of bad for Timmy. He never really got out of the gate, but I have a feeling he's going to regroup and be back next time you guys do this.
I don't know what gives him that feeling that you're going to regroup, and I don't know why he feels bad for you.
Just trying to be nice, I guess.
Dale, now, we forget that you did not win the first one. You did not win the first one. You're talking like the New York freaking Yankees right now, that you always win. You don't always win. You've got one win.
One of many more to come.
Trust me, I congratulate you. I congratulate Michael because my team just didn't show up. I was like Aaron Rodgers getting hurt on the fourth play of the season, man. I just did not have the team this year, even though on paper going in I thought I did. But Dale, you do have the license to crow a little bit, but don't crow too much.
No, I will
though. I do know you will. And Michael should be able to crow a little bit because his team was very, very good.
Yeah, I jumped out to a lead, but I tired. I tired on the backside, and after that I was never really in it. Looking at the Breeders' Cup Day, I just I heard Dale kind of basically accepting the win before they even loaded the gate on Breeders' Cup weekend. Nice confidence. I like that.
Yeah, Dale was holding a pretty strong hand.
Yeah. I looked pretty strong going into Breeders' Cup. Everything fell into place. And like I said before, I want to thank all my friends for giving me the inside information. That's a little edge I had on Michael.
Well, let me throw this out there for you guys. We're going to do another showdown, the Showdown 3. It'll be the rubber match between Dale and Tim. And, Michael, I got to tell you, we enjoyed having you involved so much that we want to open it up to our listeners again to see if we can have another listener compete against Dale and Tim. So maybe you win that drawing again. You get an opportunity to come back and compete against them for another opportunity. But you certainly represented Aqueduct and the Aqueduct All-Stars very, very well. Let me ask you this question, Michael, for listeners who are tuned in right now thinking, okay, I want to crack at Dale and Tim. What was the strategy you employed that made you so competitive in the Showdown 2?
Well, I follow racing every day of my life, and I have for basically my whole life. But to get a little quick 5-horse stable that weekend, I actually looked at workouts across the country, and I kind of tried to get a handle of who was in training. We all know the top horses that are in the Grade 1s every Saturday. We all know who those are. They're pointing towards the big races. But I picked up on Private Creed, that Steve Asmussen colt sprinting on the turf, and I knew he had won at Kentucky Downs, and he just looked good, and his workout pattern looked great. And I'm like, well, this is a quiet little horse that might sneak up and win a couple of races. He almost did. He was second at Saratoga, and then he won back at Kentucky Downs, and he didn't have a third race in him. But I looked at the entries for the upcoming weeks, potential horses that were running like a Dare Manor. I love White Abario. I've loved him since last year. I had a feeling he was going to come into his best form, and a couple other whiffs, but that's kind of what I did. I just looked around at who was going to be entered in these races and who was training well in the last half of the year. We're looking at the last quarter, you might say.
Yeah, it turned out to be a pretty good strategy, and I have to tell you, this is, of course, continuing Thanksgiving weekend, and everybody's talking about what they're thankful for. I have always been so thankful for every one of our listeners who tune in every week, and really thankful you took time to participate and embrace the Showdown 2 the way you did. I know that Dale and Tim enjoyed having you aboard, and like I say, maybe we get another opportunity to have you back on board with the Showdown 3 down the road. We'll see.
Well, thank you so much. It really was a pleasure. Just, a lot of fun, and I encourage anyone who's listening, take a shot at it. Enter. You'll have more fun than you can imagine. So thank you again, guys.
Michael, appreciate
it. Michael, it was fun. Nice meeting you.
Michael, I think that one thing, though, when you said that meeting Dale was a highlight, I think you got to get out more, to borrow a line from my esteemed colleague.
Well, we appreciate Michael being with us. It was fantastic having him along for the ride. Guys, let's go ahead and dive in now to the topics for this week's show. We have 4 or 5 different topics to get to, and we're going to kick it off with this one because the second Kentucky Derby future wager pool is taking place this weekend, and Rapoli Stables' Fierceness was made the 15-1 individual betting favorite following this performance at Santa Anita 3 weeks ago.
Fierceness grabs the lead. Muth right up alongside. General Partner gives way and is back into third. And they're into the stretch. And it's Fierceness and Muth. The two of them turning for home with Fierceness in front. Fierceness is opened up here to a 2-length lead. Muth is second. Then Timberlake down the outside. But it is going to be Fierceness and John Velasquez. Oh, they're running away. Fierceness. A powerhouse win. And then it was Muth, the late pose from Block. Timberlake was fourth, but what a performance by Fierceness.
Well, guys, I was going to ask you if 15-1 on the Breeders' Cup Juvenile winner was good value as we sit here 161 days away from the 150th Kentucky Derby. But after the first couple days of wagering, he's all the way down to right around 7-1. So let me spin it this way instead. Timmy, do you want Fierceness at 7-1? And if not, would you take him at 15-1 if he drifts back that way, sitting here on November 25th?
Well, first of all, I never bet the future wager. I think it's a dumb bet myself. I'm going to throw out a question to you guys to see if you can give me the answer to this. In the 39 runnings of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, how many of the winners made the Derby, if you had to guess?
2, wasn't it?
No, 2 of them won. But how many of them?
2 won.
How about this? How many of them didn't make the Derby? Winners of the Juvenile did not make the Derby.
The majority.
You got me there. That's another research.
I'm going to say the majority, so whatever that number turns out to be.
It's 19. 19 winners of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile did not make the Derby, including the last 2 winners, Forte and Corniche. And, you had the 2 winners in Nyquist and Street Sense, and 17 others that raced, only 3 of them hit the board. So I think, if you're going to take a futures swing, you got to get paid. I don't take 7-1. I might take 15, even though I don't bet this thing. I think you got to be very, very careful and tread very lightly on the futures bet because it is just so darn early. I mean, yeah, it's a fun bet for some people. I mean, I know that some people that have had horses that ended up winning the Derby took big swings and bet their horses in the futures and got paid. But for me, I stay away from it, and I think you really need to tread lightly on this kind of a wager because it's someone that looks really good in November might not be looking so good in May.
Yeah, it's definitely history's against him, but I think that most people that play the futures, I mean, winning money is great, but it's also about being right. And there's just something about saying I picked that horse back in December or November and made my bet and bragging to your friends. But history's against anybody who wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. It's a lot of strides between early November, late October, and first Saturday in May.
Yep, and
I mean,
one thing you have to balance out too, guys, I think, is the fact that, let's say Fierceness continues to develop and just blows the doors off the competition between now and the first Saturday in May. He's going to be a lot lower than 7-1. He might be 5-2 on Derby Day. So the 7-1 looks pretty juicy if you look at it from that respect. But boy, you're asking an awful lot of that horse to be able to do that between now and that first Saturday in May.
I mean, you remember the horse Arazi back in the early 90s?
Yeah.
He after he won the juvenile, they were anointing him as the second coming of Pegasus. And, that leading up into the Kentucky Derby, it was no one was going to beat Arazi. And he finished 8th, even though he made a move in that race, but he flattened out. And there's just to me, to anoint a horse, and no one's anointing Fierceness yet, trust me. But, to right now to say that this horse that won the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is going to be wearing roses in May, I don't see it. I just don't. I think Fierceness looked awful good in the Juvenile, but he's still got much more to prove.
Going to have to give you more than 7-1 or 15-1 to take that risk, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. All right, well, that is Derby Future Wager Pool 2. You can bet it at TwinSpires.com. Second topic, today's Kentucky Jockey Club and Goldenrod are part of Churchill's Stars of Tomorrow 2 program. The Kentucky Jockey Club has produced 2 winners of the Derby over the past 25 years, Real Quiet and Super Saver, while the Goldenrod also boasts 2 Kentucky Oaks winners in that time, Silver Bullet Day and Rachel Alexandra. So, guys, I'm going to ask you, which race is more likely to make it number 3 or add another one to their respective divisions when racing returns to Churchill Downs in early May? Dale, I'm coming to you first. I think I might know your answer.
Yeah, I'm going Jockey Club for sure. Stretch Ride, he might be the one. But, Phillies, a lot of things happen with them along the way. I think that's a little tougher. And you're talking about 2 real superstars that came on back and won the Oaks, Silver Bullet Day and Rachel were both just absolute superstars. So if I had to pick one of the races this weekend that's going to produce a Derby horse next year, I will go, or a Classic winner early next year, I'll go with the Jockey Club. And hopefully it's Stretch Ride.
Yeah, what's impressed you most about Stretch Ride to this point?
The fact he likes to win, and the more I train on him, the better he gets. He shows you all the characteristics of a top horse. And, like I said, it's a long time till May in a racehorse's life, but he's doing well, and I think he's going to run really big today.
Timmy?
Wasn't he overseas?
He was. He actually was. I had a funny story about him. He was bought for $5,000 at the yearling sale in September at Keeneland, shipped overseas, went through a 2-year-old sale over there. Just happened to be Kip Elser was over there at the sale and called Terry Finley with West Point and said, this is a really good horse. He's nobody's looking at him because I guess American pedigree. He bought him for $100,000, sent him back over here. He's got a lot of frequent flyer miles, and he's just a tough-minded horse.
So he's matured a little bit beyond his young age already?
Yeah, he has. He's really matured, and he's getting better, and I think there's a lot of room for improvement. It kind of shows you where West Point can go all over the world to find a good horse, and they plucked this one out of Europe, and I'm just glad they sent him to me.
As far as the question Mike sent out here, of course I'd love to see Dale get a win in this race today and then go on and get some Derby glory because, Dale's a good guy. And, the West Point, Terry Finley, he's a good guy. I'm friends with both of them. And, it makes the game better when people that you know and you have relationships with can do some good. Again, it's still so early in these careers, and it's great to have Derby fever in November. There's an awful lot that can happen, but I'm really rooting that this one stays on the course and does a lot of good. And I hope he makes the next step towards that today. So I'm going to say Dale's horse. Yes, that's my guy.
Yeah, full disclosure, we are recording this edition of I Ask, They Answer here on Friday. So there's a good chance, Dale, that as we're talking about the Kentucky Jockey Club, you could have already recorded another Greatest Stakes victory in your career with the Grade 2 Clark on Friday afternoon. So, man, that would be wonderful if that is indeed the case.
It's a big weekend for our stable, and both horses are doing well. And Giant Game, he's a grinder. Now, if he gets out there and runs his best race, he'll be very competitive today, and hopefully we're talking about him next weekend.
Yep. Giant game running in the Clark on Friday. Again, you're listening to this show, obviously, Saturday morning, as you do every single week. And Dale getting ready to get cranked up for the Kentucky Jockey Club with Stretch Ride, who is 3-1 on the morning line. All right, moving on. We get a chance to welcome our good friend, Nick Zito, to the program. And Dale and Tim will tell me if the following statement is right or wrong.
Yeah, right or wrong. Am I right? What do you think? Right or wrong?
Okay, guys, it was on this day, 26 years ago, November 25th, 1997, that officials from Churchill Downs and the Maryland Jockey Club announced a new method for drawing post positions for the Kentucky Derby and the Preakness Stakes. The traditional blind draw would be held to establish a selection order. Then a horse's owner and trainer would be, or an authorized agent, whoever they would choose, would pick out the preferred post position among those that were still available. If I were to say, racing needs to bring this back to add a little excitement to the post position draw, would I be right or wrong?
What do you think? Right or wrong?
Dale, what do you think?
I think you're right. I enjoyed that. I like being able to pick, and it's all the luck of the draw anyway, the order in which you get to pick or the order your number comes out. But I thought it added a little drama. There's been a couple of exciting things happen at the draw. I think when Rick Dutrow chose the 20 hole for Big Brown was pretty exciting. I think when it was funny, if you remember, when Sheikh Mohammed was at the draw for the Derby, and he walked up and acted like he was taking one of the plaques off and putting his on. And I thought that was pretty funny. In his country, he'd get away with that. But I thought it added a little drama, made the draw a little more fun. I'd like to see it come back.
I'm going wrong on this one. I mean, I remember when that came out, and it was a novelty. And I remember going down to First Street in Louisville to when the first ones were going on there, and it was a, event, but it was a made-for-TV event, is what it was, and it went on for too long. I mean, I get where the participants get to pick their post position, but it just went for forever, and it was must not see TV after a while. It got boring. And it just because the show was on for like an hour and they had to milk it, and it was bad. It was bad TV. And if they tweaked it a little bit so it went a lot faster, I could see him doing it. And you get the participants to pick their post. But I also think that if they want to do something, they should top point getters should get to have the top picks. I mean, if you win the most points in the Derby prep races, you should get rewarded for that, and you should get the first pick, and then down the line. That's how I would do it.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting philosophy. We'll see if anybody picks up on that, Timmy. I kind of like that idea. All right, that is our good friend Nick Zito with Right or Wrong. We'll bring that topic or that segment back for you again next week here on I Ask They Answer, as we do every week. One more topic to get to, and then Dale and Tim's final point of the week. We're down to about 3.5 minutes in the program, guys, so we'll have to boogie through this one. But Fairgrounds recently kicked off their winter meet. Turfway opens on Wednesday, and Gulfstream is going to follow suit on Friday with the start of their championship meet. Oaklawn and Santa Anita are also coming up on the horizon. So, Tim Wilkin, which winter meet are you most excited about?
Well, being an East Coast guy, I'm gonna take Gulfstream because that's where they run the Florida Derby, the Fountain of Youth, and the Holy Bull. Yeah, the other three tracks, they have more prep races, but Gulfstream also has the Pegasus World Cup, and that is a race that, it was so hyped when it first started, and I think that it could get a little bit. I think it needs a little bit more of a boost, but it's a race that. It starts the racing calendar off pretty much. And, a lot of the New York horsemen and Kentucky horsemen are in Florida. And, that's the tradition for me. Florida Derby, Fountain of Youth, Holy Bull. I like that for the Derby preps. And I just love watching racing in Florida.
I must agree with my friend. I love Florida. I'm going up on my 30th winter in a row down there, and have a home down there, and that's my spot. And I just love South Florida racing and the preps and the big races. The everyday cards could probably use a little boost, but I love South Florida racing. I think the best horses come out of there. The horses that do the best the rest of the year come out of there. And I just enjoy going to the races on a nice day in the winter at South Florida. I can't wait to get down there next week.
Now, the championship meet kicking off on Friday should be fantastic. Of course, Santa Anita will open with their traditional day after Christmas. You got Oaklawn, as I mentioned, Turfway getting ready to kick off their meet on Wednesday. A lot of things coming up with the winter season, but Gulfstream certainly hard to top. All right, guys, time in the show now when you get to make one final point before we wrap things up. So let's see. Timmy, why don't you kick it off for us this week?
Well, I just want to go back to the stretch ride. I'm wishing Dale plenty of luck in that race, and hopefully that the Kentucky Jockey Club gets him going on to bigger and better things as he moves on to into his 3-year-old season. And I hope he enjoyed the broccoli casserole yesterday on Thursday.
Thank you, Timmy. I did enjoy my broccoli casserole. We had a great time together. Thanksgiving always to me is closing weekend at Churchill Downs, and it kind of wraps up the entire year. And it's been a great year of racing, and can't wait to get started next year for all the Derby preps and all the exciting things we have to talk about.
Dale Romans, all the best in the Kentucky Jockey Club this afternoon and going forward with all those runners as you make your way down to Florida. Safe travels. Timmy, appreciate it, my friend. Enjoy the weekend. We're going to do it all over again next week.
Thanks, fellas.
All right, if you have a topic you want to hear Dale and Tim debate or talk about in any form or fashion, email it to me, mike@horseracingradio.net, and I will work that into the show in the weeks ahead. I Ask, They Answer is presented every week by the University of Louisville, Equine Industry Program, and the College of Business. I'm back with more. This is the Equine Forum on the Horse Racing Radio Network.
Hi, Tony.
Hey, Matthew.
There's a reason why Tony Steaks and Seafood is my favorite restaurant. It's because I want to feel part of the family. Isn't that right, Tony?
That's right. There's a saying on the wall that I truly believe in. There's always room for one more at our table. We just want you to be part of our family.
And believe me, you will be. It's Tony Steaks and Seafood right across from Triangle Park. Visit them at TonySteaksandSeafood.com.
James Brown and Bill Cowher welcoming you back to Dennis Melvin's house. It's time for the Midnight Snack Run.
This is one tricky obstacle course. Sticking to healthy habits in this kitchen is going to take focus and determination, but it can be done, JB.
He's already entered the snack part of the course, and he's eyeballing a jar of chocolatey candy.
That is tempting right off the start.
Uh-oh, he's reaching, Bill, but he pushes it away.
Great stiff arm.
He's approaching a plate of delicious-looking iced cookies.
Oh, Dennis, you only want one of those.
He blows right by him for the apple.
Oh, the fridge. It's make or break time, JB.
He stares down some rich-looking treats. Uh-oh, looks like he's headed for the soda. Wait, he jukes left, grabs the water bottle, and shuts the door with his elbow in record time.
Unbelievable move. I gotta see that again.
And he's out. He even turned off the light.
That's the way you execute a midnight snack run.
Stand Up to Cancer and Rally want you to reduce your risk for cancer.
Go to takeahealthystand.org.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. We leave no warrior behind. Wounded Warrior Project is a non-profit organization created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war. Whether those scars are physical or mental, we're here to make sure that they heal. And whether it's helping those with post-traumatic stress disorder live a normal life again, or giving much-needed support to injured warriors in veterans' hospitals. Because no one deserves our help more than the men and women who risk their lives to keep us safe. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind. Ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Trainer Talk, presented by Fasig-Tipton.
Please join me in welcoming Hall of Fame trainer Todd Fletcher.
Hall of Fame trainer Nick Zito on Trainer Talk. Welcome Hall of Famer Bob Baffert to the program. Hall of Fame trainer Shug McGahee, nice enough to spend some time with us. Hall of Fame trainer Bill Mott here on Trainer Talk.
Dual Hall of Fame trainer Mark Cassie.
Trainer Talk, The biggest names in horse racing. Wednesdays, 6 to 7 p.m. Eastern. Sirius 162, XM 207, and streaming live at horseracingradio.net. You're listening to the Equine Forum on HRRN, presented by TwinSpires.
Well, remember the December issue of Blood Horse features 150 pages, including Breeders' Cup Honor Roll, which is a recap of White Abarrio's Breeders' Cup Classic victory, followed by breeding information for all 2023 World Championship winners. That's by Bob Ehalt. And then Lenny Schulman has a piece in there which is tremendous. Hoops to Horses. Former NBA great Tony Parker's latest entrepreneurial venture has landed him in the winner's circle. So make sure you check all that out. You can download a copy now from the Blood Horse Magazine app via the App Store or Google Play, or subscribe today and receive a 2024 Blood Horse calendar, which is a $24.95 value, absolutely free. Just simply go to bloodhorse.com/HRRN, and you can take advantage of that special offer. Well, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible here this morning, taking a look ahead to the championship meet coming up at Gulfstream beginning on Friday. Of course, we took a look at the meet at Turfway kicking off on Wednesday, that conversation with Tony Calo earlier in the program. Had a chance to welcome this week's Unsung Hero, and we talked about the big weekend coming up at Churchill Downs later today. It is closing weekend at Churchill. Make sure you get all those bets in at TwinSpires.com. And that Kentucky Derby future wager, yeah, it's a slippery slope. Timmy pointed that out, and I asked the answer. A bit of a slippery slope, but if you like a horse, take your shot. Why not? As Dale said, it's good to be right on the Derby winner in November. Again, my thanks to all of our guests for making this show possible here this morning. If you missed any portion of the program, head back to our website, horseracingradio.net, to listen to the podcast. Do that on every podcast platform as well. And follow us on social media at HRRN on Twitter, Horse Racing Radio Network on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. My thanks to my producer, Lee Delapina, in our Lexington studio, to Chauncey for handling all of our social media. I'm Mike Penna. Thanks for listening to the Equine Forum presented by TwinSpires. Go Steelers. Let's get back on track.